has been my idol since growing up. Granted, she had my father. They about was becoming a mom, and I said, you know what? Do it. Like, you're in a great place to make this happen. Do what you've always dreamed of. Like, my miracle is here now. And I just truly wish I would have done it so much sooner, but I was hesitant. What are people going to think? What are people going to say? Can I really financially support a baby by myself and still work full time as a boss mom? It's not a decision that I made lightly, but it was a decision that I made, especially because at the time, I had been single for 4 years. 4. So what do you want me to do? Wait 4 more years till someone comes about? Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. I put myself first. I put what I wanted first. And it was the best damn decision I could have made. I also want to say what had a heavy weight on my influence was my mom. Like, my mom.
Let me just say this first and foremost, with all compassion and all love. Woman, I love you. First and foremost. Black women especially, you got my heart. But where we're about to enter, okay, what we're about to enter into a time of a generation of, okay, it's some bullcrap. Okay, that is where we're entering into. So let me start strong, and I'm going to bring some compassion a little bit later on in this conversation. Where we're entering into is some bullcrap. Okay, it's some bullcrap. Okay, where we're entering into, you see, we accuse the LGBTQA community of being feelings based. Yeah, we've got women now entering into that same space, which is feelings based. I feel like I deserve this, so now I get to do this situation. And you know what? I don't just blame women, I blame men too. Okay? Because we've been in some cock and bull for a very long time, and breakdown of families is part of that reasoning that we're here at this moment now. Okay, so men don't get to be free. Okay, but the majority of this aspect of conversation is on the women because they're choosing this particular thing. Okay, all right. Now, if you are doing single by choice, not by circumstance, but by choice, this is some selfish behavior. And that doesn't mean that I do not understand the nuances that bring people to make this decision. It doesn't mean I don't empathize with the desire to want to become a mother, and I can understand that there's a very strong desire, and that as a man, I will never fully grasp ever being in a position of being a mother because it's about giving life. I will hands down tell you that I have no clue how that feels. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you can sit there and tell me face to face that you would intentionally want to be a single mother by choice, right? And bring life into this world on purpose, knowing what you want to do, then you are no different from. Okay, let me rephrase that. Let me not say no different. Let me say that you are close on the scale of the selfishness that those men that breed women up, knowing they ain't got no thought process of sticking around and looking after their child. Okay, so yes, I'm choosing a little bit of violence today because this is nonsense. Right? And the damage that gets done to the child, I don't want to pretend. And then what happens is people come out and be like, so what study are you talking about? What study are you talking about that children get affected when they only have one parent? Are you nuts or you're nuts? I'm not going to argue with you. I don't need to produce a study. Look around you. Suddenly you don't want to look around you anecdotally, but anecdotally is how we got here in the first place. When I hear stories about, well, I've been hurt before. I've been in so many relationships where I've been cheated on. I've been disrespected. I've been abused bomb. And I'm just in a perfect place now where I feel like, and I've seen so many marriages break down. I've seen so many relationships break down. And so what's the point of having a man? You're talking anecdotally, and yet when I'm coming with you telling you anecdotally, this affects children, especially young men who are reared by their mothers, how it affects them. You're gonna tell me what's the stats? Give me the study that you did. Oh, so now you want to study. So now you want to study, right? It's nuts. Okay, all right. We are entering into a very crazy space. Okay. a very crazy, crazy space. Okay. And I'm not just blaming women, because the reason why these women are in here in the first place is because oftentimes, and people don't want to talk about it, but we'll talk about it. Oftentimes, and the men want to think their hands are up and free. We're not free. We as men are not free, because if we're the leaders of our society or the leaders of our community, the reason why we're here is because of some bull crap that usually happens with a son, a nephew, a brother, a friend, who ends up moving absolutely trash with women, and these women are on the butt end of these situations. This comes from father figures not being emotionally present and physically present. This comes from mothers too, but we're talking about majority father figures because they're the ladies of the community, right? Okay, so in reality, we're in a very dangerous place. We're in a very dangerous place, and and my title is, okay, all right, that single mother by choice is going to create what they hate. The reason why these ladies are now having children and they're not deeping, right? Okay, let me tell you this, what they're not deeping is this: the men, and again, this is not all across the board, right? But we talk about whether you're two parents or one parent makes no difference. Makes a difference. But if you got bad parents, it's going to affect you, right? Even me having two parents, like I said, if you're not emotionally present, it affects me. Okay, so let's keep that real. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to say that's not hampering. I'm not going to say that people are not affected. Two parents, one parent emotionally unpresent, regardless whether you have one or two, if the parent is not a present parent with emotional maturity, that child will be affected. Okay, but when we put ourselves in a place, okay, when we put ourselves in a place where the mother, okay, all right, is choosing to be single and to raise a young man. I'm talking about, because remember, look, you raise girls, women can raise women. I don't care. But now we're talking about the young boys. When you go to Manosphere and Rep Hill, go and find a lot of them have these scenarios: single mothers, non-present mothers, bad daddies, whatever, right? A lot of times, right? But a lot of these boys have mummy wounds. Okay, a lot of these boys have mummy wounds, and look how they behave. Right? Look how they behave. Right? Anecdotally, you hear these stories from these men on man, and let me bring some of these anecdotal stories that these men will tell you. Like, oh, my mother was selfish. She caused my dad to run away. I mean, it's a stretch. It's not everybody's story. All right, let's be honest. Some of your dads just did run away. They weren't trying to be present, right? And some the mother did chase away. But the reality is, a lot of guys just didn't want to be there. Let's be honest, right? But cool, right? So these men, once they don't have that situation pattern, the frustration that they feel of not having a father figure, either not knowing, either not knowing, or loose connection with the father figure, emotionally not present father figure, causes some deep ass issues in these men that they don't even realize. Let me give you an example, right? And I'm jumping a little bit. Yesterday, I had a conversation with Tony, and this was funny because I was interviewing Tony, and I was asking him about the reason why he ended up in a situation where he had two women on separate occasions while they were pregnant. Right? I was asking him, what made you get to that point? I said to him, what was the impact of your father on your father not being there in consistently the way you needed to be? What was the impact? He couldn't tell me. Right? And then when I was asking him and questioning, people in the chat were telling me, he's already answered the question. Why are you going so deep, Kojo? What are you trying to do? What I'm trying to do is trying to show you pathology. What I'm trying to do is get you to understand that we are not free. Right? What we're trying to understand is we're not free. Okay? We're not free from these choices. And 1SG, we're not... What did you misunderstand? Single mother by choice. What did you miss? Don't miss it. Single mother by choice. It's not by you talking about someone passed away. We know about those situations, right? So a lot of men are suffering from the impact of parents and their lack of either emotional presence or physical presence. Especially especially within our Black community. Let's talk, because I don't interview white people, so I'm just talking about Black people as a people, right? you've watched me intersect so many people I'm ready to love, and I've asked them, what is the relationship with mother and father? And what you realize oftentimes is either the mother or the father, there's been some kind of thing that impacts the behavior as to why they behave in a particular way. And when I was watching with Tony, I was trying to get people to understand was, look, Tony didn't get here by himself. You don't notice a pattern? You haven't seen the pattern? The brother has 3 separate serious relationships, but didn't marry any of them, but then ended up getting pregnant with 2 out of 3. But when we're asking the question as to why we got to that position, why did you wait 4 years before then you got into a relationship the way you did? Why did you wait 4 years before you wanted to move and then marry her? Why are we doing this? Well, because there's a deeper issue when it comes to commitment. There's a deeper issue when it comes to pressing forward. There's a deeper issue when it comes to even when we're talking about how serious we consider certain choices. Right? The sleeping, and I'm holding everybody accountable, including myself. Right? Because when we fornicate and we do it freely, it does affect people. Let's just keep it real. I mean, I'm not gonna lie about it. So we are all accountable here. This is not a one person fits all. We all part of this nonsense, right? So I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it 100% real. I don't think we need to define choice. The choice is very simple. When we're talking about choice, we're simply putting people who have decided to go to a sperm donor to have a child without a father figure being involved. Okay, so if you know you want to have a child and you knew you had no choice of being with that person, if you've made somebody a single mother by choice, by intentionally not wanting to be around that kid, that's you making it by choice. But we're talking about specifically sperm donors, right? That's it. Just keeping it simple. No need for nuance here, because we're talking about specifically when talking about sperm donors, people are choosing to be single mothers by choice. Okay, if somebody left you, it's not by choice, guys. Okay, yeah, if they left you, it's not by choice. All right, so so there's a whole conversation now. There's a whole conversation now as well. So sorry. So going back into what I was going to say. So as men, right, as young boys growing up to be men, the importance of fatherhood is quintessential. It can't be missed. So look, when these ladies are telling me, and let's watch the video. I'll just play a bit of this video again to understand, to see what we're saying. Listen to what she's saying. Just listen, and I'll break it down.
Has been my idol since I, growing up. Granted, she had my father. They've been married the length of my life, literally 20. Well, I'm 30 now, so 30 years, and just to see how she was as a mother, she was so nurturing, so caring, so loving. And even, when my parents separated, I saw her be a single mom and rock it. Like, she was handling her business, being a single mom with 3 kids, like making things happen. And
pause. She just said something really powerful. She said, I saw my mom rock it as a single mother. She was so nurturing, caring, strong. Do you know you're about to replicate the reason why you're single in the first place? The very men that are going to come out of your loins, that are going to come out, are going to be telling the same story, saying, well, why am single mother, look after all the kids, be the emotional caring. We're trying to have a fight about getting men to be more present and emotionally a part of the family in terms of rearing the kids up as well as providing financially. But we're going to go backwards, because what we're now going to be saying is when these guys grow up, the ones that we're rearing, the ones that we're growing up, when they grow up, what they're going to be like is, well, I had a single mother too. And she did the cooking, the cleaning, looked after the house. She did all those things. Why would I want to choose a woman who doesn't do those things? We have that issue right now of young Black men, and I'm talking about Black, not that it's specific to Black people, it's around the board, all races, but we're talking about Black because we're Black. We have so many young men who are screaming, well, my single mother was strong. So why would I want to date somebody who's not as strong as my single mother? And you are about to replicate that same pattern by saying my mother was strong. So, why don't I just be a single mother and choose that path? And again, Janice, thank you very much as well, right? This is why I keep saying about pathology of reasoning and choice, because a lot of times when people say, I've made a choice, they don't realize they're being impacted by certain things, which is why I ask questions, right? I ask questions. Nobody is free, including myself. We are impacted by our parents. We're impacted by what we've seen in our childhood. Having parents split is not easy. It affects you in some type of way. Having parents together who don't love each other affects you in some type of way. Having no father present affects you in some type of way. Having a father not present and not a part of your life affects you in some type of way. That's an abandonment. A mother who says they love you but wasn't emotionally present affects you in some type of way. We need to stop pretending as if these things don't impact people and affect us. But I'm specifically talking about women choosing this role on purpose, not about anything else. And I'm saying that, okay, we can raise daughters, but you're going to raise daughters that have seen women not interact with men on a particular level, or at least a father figure, choosing to do things by themselves. So they're going to become more independent women. And then we're going to have young men who are going to be more dependent because you can't raise a man. You don't know how to raise a man. You're a woman. I don't know how to raise a woman, right? You see daughters who are raised by fathers, and you see how masculine their energy is in terms of how they behave, because men don't raise women. We don't. Women don't raise sons. They don't raise men. They can nurture that child to a point, but they don't raise them. Now, if you're choosing it on purpose, this is different from you being placed in a situation. If you are in a situation where someone's left you, where there's struggles between you and the father figure, where, the person's passed away, this is not by choice. It's not by choice. Not by choice. We're not talking about those situations. Those situations are things that have been done to you. You're not choosing it on purpose, right? Even if you felt like you had to leave the partner because they weren't good enough for you, that is not by choice. We're talking about the fact that people are choosing this as a choice, as in, oh, I feel like I'm ready to have kids now, so I can do whatever I want to do now because I've reached a certain level. And look, let me tell you something. I said this before. Women are no better than men. Give them power, they will usurp it and do whatever they want to do as well, because it's based on feelings. Just like men are take advantage of their power. Human beings is the issue. This is why the gospel is so powerful. Human beings is the issue, because human beings at their core are selfish in their nature. Both men and both women are selfish in their natures. They just need an opportunity and a platform to showcase how selfish they are. Right? All right, so, but let me just play this again, just to finish off the last points of this, and then we can really talk, because I really want to have a real conversation.
We never went without anything. And I just saw the strength in her. Like, I don't need a man, or I don't need a woman to help me do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to make it happen on my own. And that really fueled me, because I'm a Virgo. I'm independent. I'm a perfectionist. Like, whatever you want to sum that.
Pause it right there. She doesn't even look. And this is both men and women, by the way. I want to make it very clear, because I've been saying something for the last few weeks. Women think sometimes, not all, some women think they are better at relationships than men. They're not. They come in with huge issues and they don't realize they choose and not discern the right type of men to be with. And they themselves end up becoming bad partners. They think they're amazing, some of them. They're not. And there are men out there who are absolutely trash too, who think they're really good too. And they're not. They're trash. Right? So now we've got to get to this point where we have to have this real conversation, right? Because again, I want to make it very clear. I'm not leaving men out the equation. Men are also a part of this conversation. They are if they're called the leaders of their community, they've influenced the community to get to this point. So they're not free. So I want to make it very clear again. Men are not free. They're not. You know what I mean? And we'll deal with them in accordance with this as well, right? So, but going back to what she's saying, she doesn't even realize she's traumatized. She doesn't realize it's been normalized that her mother had to do 2 jobs. That's painful, right? Her father figure should have been there and should have been present and should have been taken on the load as much as the mother did. So we're going to have a real conversation too about what kind of role do men have to play in their children's lives. Because leaving your kid with the mother and a majority of the week and a majority of the month and a majority of the year, and you don't spend time with that child, you are failing to impact that child in the way it needs to go. You're failing to emotionally be present, regardless of whether you're together with that mother or not. So we have to have a real conversation about that too, because you're damaging the community, right? Absenteeism ain't free. Okay, it's not free. So we're not going to ignore that either, right? But coming back to what she said, she's choosing trauma. She's choosing to be in a position where you're gonna have to carry a load on your shoulders when your mom had to do it. I'm sure if you asked your mom, she would have told you, I don't really have wanted to be in that position. I don't think there's any woman, when they really deep it, they want to be in that position on purpose. People want to be in relations with other people. They want to have the help. They want to be able to have people, they want to have the father figure there as well. We all want that image. We understand that things happen and so people can't, but choosing it is just is madness, right? At this point.
Up fast, but I just knew, seeing what she was able to conquer, as we grew up, and the woman I've become, inside and out, I owe to her. And she truly just influenced me in a way that I don't depend on anybody. And I know I don't need anyone to make a lot of my realities happen.
Pause it right there. Do you hear what she said? She said, and this is so funny because, and this also conversation comes into lesbian, gay, trans, whatever. If you having kids, you realize it takes a man and it takes a woman. Have you realized that? This is why God is so powerful. This is why the gospel is so powerful, because regardless of how you feel, facts are facts. Right? Let me start there. Regardless of how you feel, facts are facts. Let's start from there. I was just thinking about this other day, and I said to myself, Genesis 1-3, chapters 1-3, is so powerful, but it's become so much more powerful today than I think it did when I was even first becoming a Christian. And I'll tell you why Genesis 1-3, the chapters 1-3 is so powerful. Because the simple words of Genesis 1:26, when he says he created a male and female, right? First of all, he created them male and female. He didn't create them as anything else but male, female. However you feel is however you feel. But God made them male and female. However you feel is how you feel, but he made it that way. And then he said also, how you going to reproduce is going to be male, it's going to be female. So whether you do IVF, whether you do a sperm donor, whether you two slept together, whether it was created in love, whether you got married and had children, it don't matter. The combination is still the same. It still takes a man's sperm and it takes a woman's egg, because what he was trying to let you know is I created a male and female because two become one, and there is no other way to do it. So you can use all the scientists you want, and you can use all the pseudoscience to bring it in and tell me how you feel about how many genders there are. It don't matter, because no matter how many genders there are, you can only make a child through a man and a woman. Okay, so the importance of Genesis 1-3 has become so much more potent, because Adam and Eve are now representing what God had instituted and wanted for this for generations to come. This is why Abraham had to sleep with a woman called Sarah to birth Isaac. But when he wanted to bring his promise, and look at this, let's talk about this. I didn't want to preach, but I'm preaching, and God, you know what? As I'm preaching, I'm also listening, I'm learning, and I'm saying to myself, I have to humble myself too, because I got my own issues, right? But do you notice something? We are now in a season where people are wanting to birth Ishmaels. People are actually wanting to birth Ishmaels, right? People are now choosing on purpose to birth Ishmael. They're saying, do you know what? I don't care what God designed it to be like. Flip, do you know what? I don't even care what society says anymore. I do what's best for me. Irrespective of how the repercussions come, because I wanted it, I'm going to do it. Right? So instead of waiting on the promise and saying, you know what, I'm going to wait, I'm going to be with somebody, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have children, and look, we all know things happen. So some people don't get married and some people have children before that. I'm not talking about them being an issue, because that's a separate thing we're discussing. We're talking about specifically now, okay, about how God instituted it, wanting a man and woman, male and female, right? So now when Abraham decides that he's going to ignore what God said, he's going to go ahead of him, and then he's going to now have a child with Hagar. Who told Abraham to go and have a child of Hagar? Right? I spoke about this last year, and now it's coming around again. Who asked Abraham to go and have a child with Hagar? Was it not Sarah? Was it not Sarah telling Abraham, my friend, go and sleep with my servant and bring about this promise? Was it not Sarah? because of how she felt. Now, this is why I said it's not just women alone. This is why I said that women are accountable, yes, for their action, but why I said that men cannot be free from this conversation. Because when Sarah said that to Abraham, Abraham knew better because God had told him what to do. Is it not the same thing that happened to his forefather Abraham in the Garden of Eden? They told you, Adam, do not eat the fruit from the tree. Right? So now what happens? Abraham goes, all right, Sarah, I'm going to go and do this. Abraham goes ahead and then has what? Has a child with Hagar and has Ishmael. Now, the biggest issue with Ishmael is he isn't inheriting the promise. Now, the other issue that's a psychological thing is Hagar decides to now start using that as a way to pick and prod at Sarah. She's like, well, Sarah, you ain't even got a kid. I mean, your man came to me, okay? He laid it down on me, and I'm birthing a child, okay? All right? And she starts antagonizing Sarah to a point now Sarah's saying to Abraham, send away your seed. You don't need to be here. Send away your seed. Right? Now, what people don't realize is the generational impact that Abraham's seed creates. And this is why I'm saying, men, you are not free from this conversation, because when you implant your seed in a woman, you are creating generational lineage. Right? And when you do that, if you don't father those children, you're creating dysfunction for generations to come. Let's go back. Let's look at this again, right? So Abraham then has a child of Hagar, Ishmael, then has a child with Sarah after the promise. Now there's an issue. And so what happens is Sarah says to Abraham, send Hagar away. Hagar goes away. Hagar's crying in the wilderness. As she's crying in the wilderness, the Lord says, no, an angel comes and says, listen, Hagar, we got you. Okay. The Lord has got you. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. Now, what it goes on to say is that Ishmael begins to birth generations after him, which now becomes what we have classed as quote unquote, Islam. Because they believe that Ishmael is the one that was promised child. Right? They can't accept it being Isaac. It's Ishmael. But it also says in the scriptures talking about how Ishmael's hand was always against his brothers. So you've created Ishmael and not realized that your Ishmael is about to create princes and princesses that are now going to come against the kingdom of God. You are now going to create children, men and women who are dysfunctional, who live in their dysfunctional as a functional human. Let me put it this way. Sorry. We're now going to create children we're not going to create children who are going to be living functionally in their dysfunction. So, and do you know how that happens? What just yesterday's live, we said it again. I was talking to Tony, and when I was talking to Tony, he said to me, hey, he grew up in a very harsh environment, but the father figure wasn't present all the way that needed to be. His brothers became his father figure, but the brothers are not the father. Right? And we now see how Tony's behavior, we see how it's played out. And I was trying to tell him, bro, you're not vulnerable. That's why you can't admit you were a little bit jealous. You're now making stories up about how you felt about it. But you know what I mean? Even if Morgan and Tony came together and said, this is our pact, why are you stressed? Why would Tony from it? And I know if you don't watch Ready to Love, you won't understand what we're talking about. Those of you who watch know what we're talking about. Tony from Ready to Love was making issues about Lyndon. Well, if him and Morgan made a pact, he shouldn't be stressed. If him and Morgan already said they're going to be together, he shouldn't be stressed. If him and Morgan are already consummating their relationship, Lyndon is an issue. But he couldn't see how his jealousy was informing his behavior. So he's like, no, it's Lyndon. And Lyndon, I felt sorry for Lyndon. That's going to make you feel the way you're doing towards your girl. Come on now. Come on. Let's not. Right? So we start creating people who live in dysfunction, who are functional in their dysfunction. You hear about these people who go to work, like for instance, they quote unquote, it's stereotypical. So it's an example, but it's stereotypical. Men and women who are investment bankers, right? They work in the stock markets and do you know what I mean? And the stereotypical conversation is they do cocaine to make it work for them. Now, that's not everybody. I'm just kind of giving a stereotypical example, right? But most people some people wouldn't even notice that these people do cocaine because they're so functional in their dysfunction. They don't even realize until you get up close and personal. People are living in their dysfunction. They're acting functional in their dysfunction. And they're saying, that's just me. Right? That's just me. Our good sis here in that video just told us, no, I'm independent. I can do for me. I can do all good by myself. Baby, I hear you. You can do all good by yourself. But you're not being honest with yourself. You're saying that you can do it all good by yourself, but you want a man. It's okay. It hurts. It's okay not to be okay. You know what I mean? As Jesse J said, it's okay not to be okay. Sometimes it hurts. You know what I mean? I'm saying to you. So, like, people are not realizing that it's become part of them that this is me. So the reason why I created the title of this video is because I'm saying to you, we're about to start birthing the very men that you said you don't, the very men that you're saying that are not great, that are not willing to man up and lead relationships and be the masculine man they need to be the protector. They're not going to exist. We're going to be creating different types of men, right? Different types of men, right? So I want you to understand just how powerful that both men and women are to children in their lives. I am not saying that that if you're a single mother and it wasn't by choice that you have got no hope. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, why make the chances much harder, right? Why make it more difficult? Why do you think that you being single and raising that child, especially if it's a mother and a son, that you can do the job of two people? Right? So, and by the way, there were videos of not just a black woman doing it, white women are doing this too. This is not a black woman issue, which is why my title was not about black women. This is a woman's issue because there are white women doing the exact same thing. It's not black women alone. It's not. It really isn't. So I don't want anyone to, I don't want to say it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't want anyone to feel like I'm coming. I want to be very specific. We're talking about people choosing this position now. So not if you're in that position by circumstances, we're not talking about you. We understand. We're talking about people who are intentionally being there. Okay. I just want to. I think we should a little bit more listen to this as well. Okay.
So, as the years of me dating and failed relationships, rushing into relationships, wanting to hurry up and get on the path of falling in love so we could, start the venture to having kids, there was never a doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be a mom. The question landed into, how was I going to become a mom? And I see it so often where people rush into relationships because they want to have kids. So it's like, let me hurry up and rush into a relationship. Let me hurry up and fall in love. And it's like, falling in love should be something that happened naturally, that you don't rush. Like, all of these things should just align for you naturally and not be something that you have to force. And I feel as though I know plenty of my friends who rushed into relationships that forced the love piece, that had kids and didn't last with their partner even a year. And so now they're trying to figure out the co-parenting thing. And then, the dad doesn't want to be a part of the baby's life. And it's like, one thing about me and my journey of becoming a single mother by choice, I don't come with the baby daddy drama. I don't come with, the baby mama drama. Like, I don't come with any of that. I come fully as myself with my son. And
pause. Here's what she doesn't realize. What she feels, here's the thing. What she doesn't realize is, do you think your choosing of a partner is going to get better after you have a kid? You see what I'm saying to you? Right? Do you feel that whatever issues you had prior to dating men is going to change now you have a kid? Like, deep what you're actually really saying. The reason why you're not having a kid with a man is because you already had issues dating in the first place. What makes you think that you having a child is going to change that? Think about it. Nothing has changed. The reality is, you wanted a man, but you felt like these men are not great and your options aren't great and the men that you're choosing aren't great. But do you know what? I'm not going to deprive myself of having a child, because why am I going to wait for the rights of a man? But then you're going to enter the same market without doing the work and healing? So you're gonna be in the same position again now with a kid? This is exactly what I'm talking about. See, so you are not going to be free. So if you're saying, well, you know, men can be bad parents, yeah, I hear you. I'm with you. There are some men that are bad parents. I'm with you. But this is not helping either. She thinks she's going to be better when you haven't healed. This is the reason why you're back in the same position one, but now you have a kid with it, with no father figure, with a sperm donor father figure who doesn't want to be part of that kid's life. And this is what I'm going to say again. I want men are going to also be accountable, because some of these men, you need to be accountable in terms of, where am I donating my sperm to, and what and how does it get used? Because if I'm going to donate my sperm, I'm only donating it to people that are actual couples who are married and whatever, so that I can keep it in a safe domain. If we're going to do this, I don't personally want to do it, but if that's what you want to do, then you have to be accountable and say, actually, how is my sperm going to be used? Because if we're going to be blaming just women taking it, someone has to supply it. Somebody has to supply it. Yes, I literally came from there. So 10R. I was literally watching her video as well, actually earlier on, and she spoke about why she didn't want to. I didn't watch it all the way through, but I need to watch it some more. But she did talk about she stopped the choice of it. Yeah, she said that as well. So I did watch a little bit of that as well, right? You know, so we're just doing a lot of things right now, and I'm just saying we're in that space. We're creating more mess. But you know, the Bible does say, as sin abounds, so does grace, right? As sin abounds, so does grace. As men and women choose selfishness, as their love wax cold, the grace of God is going to increase. But as the love of men and women, their love waxes cold and they become more selfish, so does the carnage increase in the life that we're living. Right? So does the carnage. Right? But the reality is, as God has said, as sin abounds, so does his grace. So does his grace. You know? So does his grace. So, you know, this situation is out of bounds, and you can't save everybody. You can't stop everyone doing it. You know, but we can have a conversation for those who are here to be like, look, I hear you, the pressure to want to have a child, Look, I've had conversations with people that are even close to me. I've told them, listen, don't come and bring me into this. I'm going to be part of your community. I don't want to hear it. I don't. Because that's me being unaccountable and be like, yeah, I support you for everything. No, I don't. Don't do it, because I'm not a part of it. Don't bring me into it. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like I've said, I've had that conversation with people that are close to me. I'm like, hey, if you're thinking about it, I hear you, but don't think about me being part of the community. Like I'm gonna, no. You know what I mean? Like this is not a mistake that you made. This is you choosing to be in a situation, and you think I'm gonna. No. I don't want to. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. You know, even if the men can't say how the sperm is used, they need to start, because you giving away your sperm and you're not knowing how it's going to be used is now becoming unaccountable, and we're creating dysfunction in our community, right? We're creating a dysfunction in our society, you know, as well. So yeah, you know, the men also have to be accountable in terms of you just giving out your seed and not knowing how it can be used. If they can't control how it's going to be used, you need to have a conversation with them, and you should be letting them know, hey, look, I don't want my seed to be used for this particular function, right? And if they're not going to abduct to that, then don't give it. But some of these men also need to be accountable too, because you happily giving your seed so you can have children out there is a madness for me too, right? It's a madness too, right? So you know, again, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I'm okay with that. I feel as though that would appeal so much more to someone once I start dating, instead of not, right? Like, oh, you have a kid, baby's under one. Like, how's that relationship with the dad? It's like, there's not one. Went through IVF. I have a donor. Like, I'm a single mom. And I feel as though I get so many contacts in my DMs of, oh my goodness, like you inspire me so much. You know, I'm thinking of doing the same. And it's like, guys, no, I researched, I thought on this for years before I made the leap into let's do this. Let's get it done. I'm doing this like guns blazing. We're having a baby. Because, you know, I had moments of doubt to where, can I really afford to take care of this baby by myself? You know, will I be able to balance, you know, work and having a baby by myself with no family in the area and no one to help me care for the child? And it's just something that I feel as though you have naysayers. Everyone's going to have something to say about your decision, something to say about your process, and you can't allow that to influence you because you're the director of your life and this is your show.
So she says something really interesting. She said, well, you know, I don't have no. Remember I told you about Sarah and Hagar? It was Hagar's contempt for Sarah that she thinks she's better. Well, look, I don't come no baby mama drama, baby mama drama. Sis, you the drama. You don't realize you the drama because you decided to choose to have a child without the father figure. How do you think? See, look, as men, we don't care. A lot of men want the easiest route possible. All right. Men want the easiest route possible. Now, I'm not saying there isn't men out there that won't love her, care about her, want her. I'm saying just because you've got an increase in options, as we already know, options don't mean that these things are actually good, right? We can have many options, but the options might not be quality. So having attention doesn't actually mean anything, right? And if I tell you the darkest aspect of it, if I tell you the darkest aspect of this, right? What you don't realize is oftentimes men are hunting. Single mothers are vulnerable. I'm going to just keep it real with you. Y'all don't know. Because some of you are lonely. You are isolated. You just want some company. And now it's giving you some D. Okay? Not every single mother. Please, I'm not talking about every single mother. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how sometimes men can think and hunt and how they think about it. So while you may be thinking about increased options, let's make sure those options are actually viable and actually valuable, because a lot of times men can see vulnerability. Just like when women have low self-esteem and when women aren't very confident and women don't actually love themselves, or women have daddy issues, men take advantage of that. And that's what I'm saying to you. Don't get excited because you don't come with I don't come with baby mama drama. You know what I mean? Just saying. Okay? Just saying. Right? Just want to keep it real. Okay? All right?
You do as you please. No one can do it for you but you. And I'm happy. I am genuinely happy. I am still single. I started dating, which I'm super excited about. And believe it or not, I feel as though when I was pregnant and after I had my son, I had a lot of more context, you know, of let me get to know you, let me take you out. I had a lot of it before, but now it's just so odd because it's like, I'm all pregnant out here in these streets and y'all want to talk like, y'all trying to talk like that? I don't know. It's just the oddest thing. But, you know, dating is going extremely well for me. And I will make a separate video on how it's been dating as a single mom. But this video is just the reasoning, right? Backtrack. Let me outline it for you. 29, having wanted kids since I could remember. Career-wise, boss bitch, doing major moves. I'm traveling abroad. I'm living abroad, you know, months at a time. I'm just doing extremely well in tech. So I'm happy. Then it goes down to, okay, we're in a global pandemic. You're not traveling anymore. Like, you're stuck in the house. You know, where are you financially? Where are you career-wise? How you feeling? Are we doing this now or are we not? And, you know, thinking whether or not it's like, oh, you know, I have the battle with myself. Should I wait another year to see if I start dating and hold off? Should I not? It's like, screw that. You waited 8+ years. You know, we're not waiting for anybody anymore. We're not. Like, I was over getting in relationships where I was mentally, physically, emotionally abused, and to think like, why would I want to have kids with any of those people? For them to leave me high and dry, for them not to want to be in the kid's life, or just for me to say, I got a baby. Screw that.
But that's what position you're in right now. Sis, you're in that. Do you, like, deep how many things she just said? Whew, baby, she said quite a lot. 29. Okay, you're a boss B. Okay. You've always wanted kids. Okay, you've always wanted kids. I hear you. All right. But you've been emotionally, physically, probably financially abused. So you just said to me, basically, am I gonna just settle with a man just to have a kid? But you're willing to settle and have no man at all and no father figure per se, who's an actual father, biological father, and settle on having a kid that way. Sis, are we in the same position we were before? Let's just deep this. Let's listen to what she's saying again. And you know, my compassion is coming through. We're almost at the hour mark. My compassion will come through, and I want to be compassionate as well, and bring some understanding too as well. All right.
That you waited 8+ years. You know, we're not waiting for anybody anymore. We're not. Like, I was over getting in relationships where I was mentally, physically, emotionally abused, and to think like,
so wouldn't your first thing be, I've been mentally, emotionally, and physically abused? First thing to do is heal, sis. Sit on the bench and heal, and probably get some therapy in there, right? Because you've been mentally, physically, and emotionally abused. You are probably wounded, hurt right now. You might want to go and take some little bit of therapy to be able to really recover. Right? You might want to go and recover. Right? So, you know, this situation of what you're talking about, sis, you might not even be in the right frame of mind as you having this kid. You might not be. I'm not saying she isn't. I'm just saying she might not be. Right? To be able to fully be able to give the child exactly what that child wants, and you actually could be replicating the very things that bring. You see, look, one thing that people don't really understand is this, right? Okay, and I know some people don't want to hear it because they want to believe that everything happens to them is the universe's way of. It's not their fault. It's a universe. It's a man's fault. What people don't realize is, right? Look, we're not saying that people don't. There are. I would say there are people out there that, well, you know what, are unfortunate. You know what? They choose the wrong person. It's unfortunate, but look, it happens, right? But the majority of us actually have to take accountability, right? The majority have to take accountability for, why do you choose these type of men and women? Because men choose women too. Why do you keep choosing that type of person, right? Because clearly, like she said, she's not somebody who hasn't got options. She's got options. Men are coming to her. The question is, why do we find ourselves in positions where we find ourselves in these situations? When I personally was in a relationship where I felt like the person was actually being kind of abusive, I had to run it back and be like, Cha, why is it that I was with that girl? Oh, I know why. Because I missed red flags. I know why. Because I thought I could save her. I know why. Because I thought that I was my goodness, my niceness was good enough to save her. I know why. So I had to take accountability for, even though I was in a situation where I felt like I was being abused. Yes, that person did what they did, but I have to take accountability. Why was I there in the first place? What signs did I miss? I had to retrospectively go back. Go back. Right? I have to go back and be like, okay, what am I contributing towards? What energy am I putting out? What how am I not seeing these flags? How come I'm getting duped all the time? Why am I getting conned by the opposite sex? What I had to look at me. Stop looking at other people and look at me. This is what a lot of people need to start doing. Stop looking at other people. Say, I've been done dirty. Yes, you have. But what are you contributing? What are you contributing? You know what I mean? So a lot of us need to actually take more accountability and stop just blaming other people. Like, yes, that's why I was hit. No, no. Why did you attract that kind of person? Why not even attract? Why did you say yes to that person? Because you're gonna have a whole lot of attraction, people attracted to you, right? But why did you say yes? So now whatever you are not fighting and whatever you not beating is about to now come onto that child. It's about to. And like I said, she's not the only one. Because when we talk about the men too, when I say that as well, as men too, if they're laying down with women and having children, knowing that this mother is, oh, she loco, my baby mother's crazy. You knew what she was like before you did what you did. I don't want to hear this. Every time men be telling us, I don't know what happened. She just switched. Yeah, because Negro, your ass chose somebody who was kind of mad already, and you don't want to pretend. You pretend. I don't know how she got so crazy. You know, she's crazy because you knew when you dated her she was crazy. I don't understand. You got to take accountability. It's not everyone is, oh, she just became crazy. No, take some accountability. Take some accountability to why you chose that person. You know what I mean? Like, people need to start taking accountability for what they do and start going on like, it's just, no.
Why would I want to have kids with any of those people? For them to leave me high and dry, for them not to want to be in the kid's life, or just for me to say, I got a baby.
But look what it said. Why would I want to be in a relationship? Why would I want to have a kid by those people who might leave me high and dry, who might not be there anymore? Just to say I have a baby. Baby, what position are you in right now? You're having a kid just to say you have a kid. Right? You're in a position now where you're having a kid just because you want to have the kid. So you're actually in the same position as you were before, just without the other factors of men involved. You know what I mean? Sis, like, we're in the same position. I feel,
Screw that. I could do all that by myself and, eliminate all the drama that comes with having a co-parent or being in a toxic relationship. You guys have no idea how traumatizing that is. Like, I would never want to bring a child into this world being in a toxic relationship with someone just to get a
baby. What about your toxicity? What if you are toxic? What if you are toxic, babe? See, you're telling about, I would never want to bring a child up into a toxic environment. Do you not think that you are causing trauma when you bring a child into a world without its father figure being there and you intentionally chose it? Do you not think? See, your thinking only goes as far as you and how you feel, and not about whether this child is how the child's going to feel. You've forgotten how you felt coming being a product of a household where you saw the parents break up and how it might have affected you. But again, a lot of people are unaware, right? That's a good point, Regina. That fear of abandonment and that fear of the person leaving is going to it could end up making her hold on to that young boy even more. And I told you about this video. I said about when boys are over mothered, they turn into the beasts that women don't want. The very men that women are complaining about that aren't emotionally present, emotionally intelligent, the men that are disrespectful, the women that are who aren't great partners. Oftentimes there's an over mothering, and so. And it's not blaming women as well. We're talking about father figures as well, but don't worry about that. There's an over mothering, and so what happens is that boy then rebels against a mother. Now, an over mothering mother with no father figure, you're gonna have some problems because boys start to naturally react. I was watching a video, and I want to bring it in because, like I said, as I'm studying more about mommy and daddy issues, about for young boys who are mommy issues, some of the things that they tell you, you'll realize. It's not. It can get real painful real quick, man. You know what I mean? So now we're gonna birth the very men that that are gonna be the guys that you're talking about. And I'm not saying it's always from a single mother home. I don't want to make it that way. I'm talking about emotionally present, unpresent parents. Emotionally unpresent parents, parents who abandon, all those kind of things. Parents who hold on way too tight, who do too much. They cause issues. But if you put yourself in a situation where you're a single mother and doing this, you're gonna cause issues for yourself. Okay. All right.
Baby, like, I'm absolutely not doing that. And so it really upsets me when I look at my comments and it's like, you know, your child needs a father figure. That's why they grow up with, you know, these mental issues. And it's like, who? What statistics are you looking at? Because granted, I have a father, him and my mom's relationship was still great, you know, with them being separated and so forth. But I came out just fine. Just fine.
Did she just hear herself? Did she hear herself? Did she just hear herself? She's like, I came out fine. Sis, no, you didn't. This is why you're here talking about, if you, no, just deep what you're saying, sis. If you saw a great relationship between your mother and your father, and yet you're struggling to replicate that, but you want that, and that now you're willing to now actually abdicate that from what you saw as a good working relationship, okay, and then get to a point where now you're willing to have a child without that father being in place. And now she's asking us, what stats and study are you talking about? Now she's telling us, what stats and what study are you talking about? Sis, I don't think we need to even do stats and study, because you yourself are not even using stats and study to back up your point about whether you're good or not, right? Right? You're giving us an anecdotal background of what you've gone through, and you've come out the other side, right? Cool. So anecdotally, let's use that same principle. Anecdotally, the kid is going to suffer. You only need to listen to people and their backgrounds and how they came about to what they are now, and you start to realize, yeah, you suffered. Sis, you suffered. You have suffered. This is why we're in this position in the moment right now. And it's exactly what I was talking to Tony about yesterday when I said to him, why are you in this position? Why didn't you wrap it up the second time round? Hey, I just had a kid. No. Why didn't you do it the second time round? You learned the first time. Why not second time? And you don't realize the pathology of thought, where it's coming from. That recklessness to create life. Oftentimes, you don't realize there's a pathology behind it. Just saying.
Not everyone that you have kids with, you're going to be with forever. Whatever. So those are a lot of the reasons why I decided to embark this journey alone. I feel as though, like, you know, nothing could stop me from making this decision for myself. Nothing was going to stand in the way of me becoming a mom. Like, ultimately, that has been my life goal, to become a mother. And my son is now 4 months, and I'm just counting down the next 5 months to start preparing for my second transfer. And yeah, I'm still not in a relationship, and I'm okay with that. I'm just fine. I'll be a single mom of 2 until, you know, that partner comes along who is genuinely for me. And I'm not rushing it, right? Like, I feel as though the stigma should be changed of love, marriage, baby. It doesn't happen that way. Like, that is a fairy tale that I hate was instilled in me, and it took long to change that mindset, because 99 times.
Yo, it's wild, yo. Because what she's really saying, she doesn't realize the impact of her childhood and seeing parents split. So now she tells us that for her, you know, hey, look, I'm gonna have one kid, you know, no one can stop me. I'm gonna have whatever I want to have. This idea of no one can stop me, I'm gonna have whatever I'm gonna have, is going to supplant onto that kid, right? You know, what happens when that child rejects your love? What happens when that child, when I say reject, it doesn't mean that they're not going to love the mother. What I mean is when that child doesn't do what you want it to do, because what you're trying to do is almost input your love into this child. But when that child doesn't return back that love and favor, how are you going to react? Because we haven't healed already, right? Because of what you're saying to me. So when we start talking about how now I'm going to do whatever I want to do, that level of selfishness is going to definitely impact that child. Because you're selfish already, right? You tell, I will do whatever I want to do. Okay. All right. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, irrespective of how you feel about it. All right, cool. How about how the kid's going to feel? Don't worry about him. All right. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? You are what you don't realize is that level of selfishness is going to play into your motherhood in how you raise that child. You know why we know that? Because the men that too also who oftentimes who abandon their kids end up giving us the reason why they abandon because of their own selfishness. Their lack of ability of wanting to be held accountable, their lack of ability of wanting to be to be present for that child because it will stop their life. Their own selfishness then comes into play. And then sometimes when children meet those fathers, and it's not all, they realize, actually, I realize why my mom left you, because you don't care about nobody else but yourself. Right? People that are inherently selfish tend to parent selfishly. Not always. Not always. Right? Not always. Okay, so we're not saying that always. But she believes, okay. And that's a point, Christine. Do you know how we know that? And do you know how we know? Do you know how we know that's going to happen? Because even two parents do it to us, right? Even two parents do it to us. When you go against your parents, your parents are like, "Hey, I brought you into this so I can take you out," right? So just imagine, and this is two parents, okay? This is definitely two parents. Two parents will even do this where it's like, "Hey, I brought you into this, but I can take you out." You know what I mean? Don't take. You're unselfish, ungrateful. Two parents can do that. So we're not saying that it's special. What we're saying is though, when you start to realize that when you're gonna be putting all your weight on, well, I birthed you, I created you out of my love. When that child rejects or goes against what you say, you have a potential to now be like, well, I brought you into this world. And the kid's gonna be like, well, you know what? You brought me into this world because you chose to, okay? And I don't even know who my dad is. It gets real tasty real quick. Again, those are not all going to be all circumstances. There are going to be some kids that are literally, their nature is they're gonna be seemingly fine. They're not going to be rebellious. They're not going to be overly, difficult to parent. There are going to be some kids who are generally going to, because of their nature, they're going to be much more calmer, and it will look like there's nothing wrong because that child will seemingly just get along. Okay. So, but people know this. You have two parents and you've heard it. Parents say, I did everything for you. You're supposed to. Okay. I don't want to hear that. You're supposed to. Oh, you know what I mean? But yes, it can be thrown back into their face. Right? A lot of times when kids are going through rebellious stages, yes, kids are growing and kids are finding their own 2 feet. There is also other types of rebellion that happen, okay, that where a child, a child. Oh, let me write this point down before I forget. Let me write the point down before I forget. Okay, all right. Let's. Okay, so let me write this point down. So, I lost that first point. I should have written both down. But okay, so my point here, my point here also too, but no, this queen quit. You know that's not what I've said. I've continuously said about how this can be also bad for 2-parent households. Okay, all right. We're not saying that. Okay, we've made it very clear what we're saying. Okay, so I don't want you to go there. We've told you already what position we hold. So that's not the position we hold. We're talking about the fact that it makes the chances worse. That's why I keep making points that with 2 parents, it doesn't mean it's going to get necessarily better, but it's an optimal, because if those parents are healthy, that child can come out healthy. And I said, obviously, especially, but if the parents are bad, we know they're bad parents when they have 2. It's not just people that have 1 parent are automatically bad or enough. No, we're saying that it makes it harder. And we're saying that when someone chooses this path on purpose, that level of selfishness is painful. Just like when a child realizes that a father figure doesn't want that child and their own selfishness about them and themselves, it hurts the child. Okay? You know what I mean? This also true. This is also true. This is also true. This is also true as well. All right. So this is also true. But the point I was going to make was, so here's the thing. Some children that will be born of these households, okay, are going to be in a are going to end up. Look, we got two forms, right? Two forms, okay, and it's going to happen on both men and women's sides, right? What you're going to find is, okay, for instance, I was thinking about this literally the other day. And I'm a naturally sensitive child. Some people might say because you're cancer. Some people say because, you're an empath. Some people because, what? I just say, listen, God created me in a particular way where I am empathic. So I feel things, okay? Now, the problem with me feeling things is that I tend to take on more load than I need to, okay? All right? Now, what that does is it creates the people pleaser in me, okay? It created a people pleaser in me because I didn't know how to hold proper boundaries. But because always, all right, I was always trying to be in a feeling-based position. I remember one time, and I hope my parents don't mind when I say this, right? Coming from a particular financial, economical background, right? You don't always get what you want, right? And so what I started to realize is as birthdays came, I didn't always get what I wanted. By the time I got to like 11, I stopped asking for things. I remember one year I said, Dad and Mom, I can't remember what I asked for. And they gave me a book and a travel bag, right? Now, listen, the travel bag was needed. Travel bag was needed. Okay? The book was needed. It was a really good book, actually. Really good book. I loved reading the book. Don't get twisted. But that's not what I asked for. Okay? Now, when I saw it, I was disappointed. And when he asked me, I said, no, it's amazing. You know why? Because what I started sensing was money must not always be there. Let me not be the child that creates more tension for them. Let me not be the child that starts causing issues so that they're under more stress. Now, here's the problem with this. If you grow up like that, you are more likely to end up meeting narcissists, abusive people in the dating pool. Because you don't realize you have to have boundaries and you have to also be able to stop your feelings stop yourself actually over feeling in certain situations. Okay. So what you're going to realize is even those children who seem to be cool and get along and they're going to be okay with you being a single mother, what you're going to realize is a lot of these kids too are going to form the people pleasing attitude. Okay. And that people pleasing attitude will open them up to those type of people that are the reason why this young lady's in the situation in the first place, who are abusive mentally, spiritually, because they're going to be coming from households too where maybe there wasn't enough love or maybe there wasn't enough care, whether it's two, whether it's one, don't make a difference. They're going to be the target. Okay. They're going to be the target. Okay. They're going to be the target. Right. And especially women who are empathic, they are the major target. I'm just going to keep it real. I'm sorry. I know men might be like out here like saying women are demons and, but I'm just going to be real with you. I've seen a lot more of it the opposite way. It's been men taking advantage of women. So I'm just going to give you my anecdotally. And so to find women who are more people pleasing, who just wanted to love and wanted to care and wanted to, wanted to be appreciated, they're more likely to succumb to these things. I'm not saying it's going to be absolutely 100%. I'm saying you're making yourself more open to those things. And we know why. Because boundaryless people. So we are creating the very women and men that we don't want to see. When I say this, don't want to see, I'm talking about people who don't know how to discern, people who don't know how to have bad boundaries, those who don't really know full love. Like, I'm sorry. Like, start in a position where you don't have a father figure, it's just nuts. Okay. It's just nuts. Yeah. And absolutely right, Z. You're absolutely right. And that's what I'm saying to you. I came from a two-parent household and I came the same way. What I'm telling you is that coming from a two-parent household does not eradicate those things. We know that. I'm saying that putting yourself in a one-parent household is going to likely increase these particular aspects. It doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be better having two. It's going to increase these particular aspects. So a lot of times what people don't realize is our animosity to certain relationship dynamics. Sometimes it's because you didn't like what you saw. That's fine. We get it. We understand. Okay. So that's the last bit.
Fairy tale that I hate was instilled in me, and it took long to change that mindset.
Now she talks about this fairy tale. She hates the fact that this fairy tale is put in her. What fairy tale? That you should get married and have kids. Why do you hate it? Why do you hate it? Why does she hate the fact that she was taught about love, marriage, kids? Okay. Why is that too? So then you start to realize, actually, sis, you're not even deep in it. You've become functional in your dysfunction. You don't realize the reason why you don't like it is because you saw a dysfunctional aspect of a relationship in your childhood. And rather than saying, actually, let me look at myself and actually heal what's within me, maybe I need to be healed, she's going on, no. It's a false ideology. It's a false ideology. It's not real. I reject that. That's not good. Why? Just like when men will come out and be like, yeah, I can't commit because, or they don't want to get married because, she wants to steal all my money. No. Okay. No. All right. Okay. It's not easy out here. It's not easy. Let's be compassionate though. Let's.
Because 99 times, 99% of the time, life doesn't go how we outline it or how we grew up to understand it, right? And so that's what I really wanted. I really wanted a baby. I was in a great place to do so. So I made it happen. And I think back to this journey and it's like, Alicia, I so wish you would have did this so much sooner because I'm genuinely happy. The most it has been the most beautiful experience from undergoing IVF to becoming pregnant to actually giving birth. It was everything I imagined it to be and more. And not one time did I feel as though I was alone in this. Like I had an entire village of support behind me to where I didn't think twice about, needing a partner or wanting to have a partner to experience this with. I was just fine. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like when you have a great support system and you have, fellow single mothers by choice who also did the same thing, it's like you're not alone in this.
So let's say it's a young boy. That young boy is gonna have more of women, more aunties and more sisterhoods, and less of the father figure roles. Hmm. 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 I hear you. All right. So she's saying she's good, which we expect her to be good because I'm not expecting you to fall out and be mad, but we're not talking about whether you're gonna be good or not. We're talking about whether this child's gonna be good, right? The mental well-being of this child, especially if you've got a young boy. And I'm saying that because if a man took that role to, I'll be like, bro, what about your daughter? What about her needing a mother figure? Why would you want to do that to her? You know what I mean?
And we need to continue to bring awareness to become, to being single parents. There's not enough awareness around, you really being able to do it on your own and the resources out there to help you navigate doing this journey alone. So yeah. So that is, my morning rant on why I decided to be a single mother by choice again.
When we talk to people who have missed out on their father fathers being present emotionally, who've missed out on fathers being there present physically. You know, there are very few people that can tell you that they're okay. Okay? There are very few people. Okay? There are very few people. Most people are affected by not having a father figure. Right? Most people are affected by that. Right? So this is opening a bigger conversation, especially for us as men who are, even those who are looking to get married, who are looking to start families, whatever, how much effort you also need to put into this relationship with the children. It is not I earn money and you look after the kids. It cannot be. Then she must do it alone. This is actually further enhancing why I believe the gospel of Jesus Christ is so powerful, because when he talks about love and he talks about us being his bride, how he handles us as a bride, that's the same way we should be looking at how our marriages and relationships should be going. So as a father figure, as a husband, as a partner, are you also as a man aware of the input that you have and the impact you have on that child based upon the time spent? I didn't need more gifts. I needed more presence. I didn't need more gifts. If I'm honest with you, listen, I may have been a little bit hurt. Don't get it twisted. I might have been a little bit more annoyed. Don't get it twisted. I might have felt some type of way. Maybe there'll be a little bit of trauma if I didn't have every gift I ever wanted. But what I actually really needed was presence. I needed I needed somebody there with me. I need somebody saying, "Hey, look, let me show you this, coach. Let's try and figure this out. Let's try and see this." Right? You get what I'm saying to you? So as young boys and young girls, they need presence of those children. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be affected by financials. I'm just saying, but that emotional presence is for emotional stability, and we can build from there. We can really build from there. But not having that father figure there, I'm telling you, boys and girls are really affected, but men especially, because like she just said something really powerful. She said, ain't nobody gonna tell me what I can and can't do. Guess what? Men with that mindset do the most heinous things in this world, because a lot of men believe nobody can tell them nothing. Having a mindset of I can do whatever I want to do on women is one thing. Having it on men is the most dangerous thing there is out there, because a lot of men are unrestrained, who feel like they're entitled to, privileged to, and they feel that society don't hold them accountable to certain things. They do whatever they want to do, and women usually are the expense of those things. So that having that ideology is a very dangerous place. Okay, all right. Having wealth that actually doesn't actually necessarily mean they have more time for you. Having more wealth doesn't mean they have more time for you. That's the funniest thing. Like, there is no perfect situation. I'm not advocating to have more money. I'm not advocating for less, because in reality, there is no perfect situation. You just need to be there. Simple as. You just need to be there, right? Because as a child, does he understand Nike shoes versus Elise or some other brand? Like, only when that kid gets a certain age does he realize, okay, brands are important, right? But because of peer pressure and school and everything. But kids more often than not need the emotional care. I think wealth is good. It has some aspect to it, but it doesn't guarantee nothing. I talk about Prince Harry and Prince William, have all the money in the world, and there's trauma there. It's the money isn't the issue. It's your emotional wealth bank. Do you have that emotional maturity? Are you willing to have conversations with your children? Are you willing to be there? Are you willing to be present? Are you willing to show up? Are you willing to be open to a different way of thinking when it comes to your children? Are you willing to support? That's what it comes down to. But I'm not saying wealth is not important. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying that money just doesn't cover those aspects. Rich people have the same issues that we have. They're just crying in a Lambo, and me and you are crying in our Micra and our Toyotas, but they're crying in their Ferrari. You know what I mean? Yeah. So You know, in that instance. That's a fair point. Wealth has choice be it more. No, there is that there's some truth to that. There is some truth to that. If you get to the thing is though, when you're building that wealth, who is at the time of having kids, how many people are wealthy? You know what I mean? At the point of having kids between 20 and 40, how many people are wealthy? That's the hardest thing. So most people are hustling at 20 to 40 to try and even get that wealth. And that's the problem with it. That's the difficulty around it, because then you have to spend so much time building it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I hear what you're saying. No, there's a true point. If you have wealth, ideally, if you have wealth, it should mean you have more time. But whenever you see these rich people, they don't have more time until they get older because they're working viciously. Now you might have more time with mum, but the father figure situation still, it's difficult. You know. Okay. Thank you, Links. Thank you. That's what I'm saying. Like, money won't solve this issue, which is what I'm saying, that poor or rich, you got the same issue. You need to work. We need to work on how we can spend some time with each other. It means there's more sacrifice, which is why I'm like, I don't even. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to. I'm like, yo, I want to have kids, but yo, it's a bit difficult. That's very true. Sending children off to boarding school, that's also true. Very true, Kwesi Harvin. Very true. You know, very, very true. There are some women who are very good at discipline. That's just them. They carry that energy. But, you know, a lot of women in their nature and their nurturing aspects and their caring aspects, you should not have that discipline. And young men will be like, you know what? I knew I could take the piss because it's mom. Okay. So I want to be compassionate now. Let's be a little bit compassionate. I'm going to open up the floor as well. So if you want to have your say, we've got another half an hour or so. I'm going to put a link in the chat if you want to come and say. But I do understand that it's very difficult in this society not to just do whatever you want. Right? Let's be honest. And that's all of us. But it's very difficult not to just be able to feel like I can do what I want and forget about the consequences. So I do want to understand that, you know, as time is ticking, there's more pressure. You know, there's more pressure for people, for women specifically, because they're facing a biological clock. And I get it, you know, I get it that, you know, being a mother is a unique, once in a lifetime thing to experience. And so I totally understand that there is an unsurmountable amount of pressure to not only yourself, not only to your family, but to the world. You know what I mean? That there is that aspect, and that is real. You know, that is very, very real. And definitely I understand that there's pressure coming from all quarters, and that not just them. Church can be pressure, you know, as well. So there's a bunch of things that can make things difficult. I see Jeff. There's a lot of things that can make the pressure really increase on people, you know, and why they want to choose this aspect. It's also very hard to deny when you have power. And this is why power, this is why as humans, why we need God. Because honestly, the unrestraint that most of us would show, and even if we say, listen, maybe the person's not a believer, but having even godly principles helps, because people show restraint. You know what I mean? You know, so this is also a big thing. I think what we're seeing now is that women are seeing that I can have it all. I can have it all. And I think this is where we're going to start seeing issues. You can't have it all the time. Sometimes you won't be able to have it all. And that we need to make women okay with that fact that you don't have to have it all. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, these things do happen. Some people will need to adopt. I've said this. Some people just need to adopt. Look, if that child is already in a system, adopt. Now we know that the situation is very difficult. It can be very strenuous situation to go through, especially in the UK. It's very stringent measures. But maybe you need to adopt. Maybe you need to foster. My aunt she fostered like 5 or 6 kids. I was like, blood, it could be me, but she fostered like 5 or 6 kids. Okay, 5 or 6 kids. So you can foster, you can adopt, and those are other viable options. And yes, it may sound like it's not the best thing to have because you want to have your own, but the reality is you have to start thinking not about you, but about the fact you're creating life. You know what I mean? Just like when I say about men who create life and then run away, it's diabolical to run away because you've created a life, a human being who is going to need love, care, and affection. It's diabolical to run away and not see these kids and not spend time with those kids. It's diabolical not to try and provide for those kids. It's diabolical, right? Because now you're creating kids with these traumas that can affect that child that will affect the child for a lifetime, right? So this is not just, again, we're not just doting on single mothers or anything like that. I'm saying the same thing. There can be 2-parent households that don't work very well either too. But what we're saying is that let's be minded, let's be guided here, and be real. We're creating life, okay, all right. And what you don't realize is a lot of this, I can do it by myself. To have a kid now, forget jobs and have men. Now when I have a kid, I can do it all by myself. It's coming from a place of pain, right? It's coming from a place of pain. So it's not easy. That's, you know what I mean? It's not easy to be in those spaces. But yeah. Okay. So, okay, we've got 2 people behind the scenes. Got Jeff, we've got Nicole. Jeff, what's your thoughts on the situation?
First of all, I'm going to try as much as possible to be very compassionate on talking about this topic, because this is very, very sensitive to women in particular when it comes to, because I get it. I get it. I get it. The desire to want to have a child is an amazing thing, because to be able to say that you bore a child into this world, it is indeed a magical thing when you are witness to the birth of life. It's a miracle. You literally bring a baby, a human being into this world. But with that, it comes on with a lot of responsibilities that sometimes I think a lot of people really underplay, because the moment you bring something as beautiful as a child into this world, with that, you got a whole lot of responsibilities you got to do. Far from just the cooking and the cleaning aspect of things, it's like literally training up the child to deal with the issues of life itself, teaching them principles and morals. Doing it on your own as a single parent, I'm not saying that 2-parent households are an easy thing to deal with. As someone who comes from a 2-parent household, I've seen unhealthy dynamics. But the load, I can't even imagine the level of load that a person who is a single parent has to carry by themselves. And you called it right, Kojo. When you say I can do something by myself because of what happened in a previous relationship, you're projecting what you went through in a previous relationship to make a decision as to how you're going to move. And it's not moving smart. It's not moving from a place of actual healing. Because from the video, she's talking about, what if I pick somebody who's toxic, But how would you know? You're projecting, thinking about the worst case scenario. What about the best case scenario of picking someone who is of good character, good principle to help you raise the child? Like, and you also got to think about the fact that it's not just about you. When it comes to raising children, it's not just about you. It's about the child that you're bringing into this world. You want to give the child the best opportunity that you possibly can. And that includes picking someone of good character who will help you along with the ride, not taking this heavy burden on yourself to do so much. And just having a child for the sake of having a child, to me, that comes from a place of either fear of missing out on the opportunity to say, oh, I was able to bear a child into this world. But that's not raising a child, birthing a child is not just a one-time experience. Raising that child on the long term, we're talking about seeing that child through the transition of childhood to adulthood, having to deal with so many factors, social factors, financial factors that come along with it. And I'm saying it'll be a lot more beneficial if you have somebody by your side to help you through the thick and thin of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I get it. Sometimes it's difficult to trust in people that let you down. So then you're thinking, you know what, maybe life will be a lot more better if I'm able to do this by myself, so I don't have to deal with the issues with someone who may potentially do me dirty. But again, you are projecting. When people say stuff like that, they're projecting the worst case scenario. If they have lived in a worst case scenario, if they've lived in toxic situations and they didn't see positive outcomes, so now you replace one extreme for another extreme. The definition of insanity is still insanity. At the end of the day, what she should be focusing on is definite therapy, definite CBT, go for cognitive behavioral therapy, go for a psychological well-being practitioner, go for counseling, speak to other people, married couples in particular. Because at the end of the day, as much as you want to be happy, the essence of a parent is not just based upon their personal happiness, but also the sacrifice that they have to be willing to make for the child. And that also thinking about the child father figure. I mean, we live in a time frame where we're always talking about the issue when it comes to men. And I understand it. And a mother is so important to the child's development. But also as equally as important is the father in this situation. Because there are some things, just like there are things that a mother can do, there are also things that a father can do. And that is the provision of structure. Now, again, I'll say once more, I am not saying that fathers are perfect. They're not. They will come with their mistakes, as we are all human beings. But the ideal situation is to be in a nuclear family. That's why God created it in that kind of way. Men and women. Men and women were not made to be alone. This life is very difficult. And you want a companion who will be able to help you through the tough times, for the long-term haul. Sure, finances mean a lot. I will never be a man that will say that you shouldn't get your money together, that a man shouldn't focus on financial stability. But what legacy do you leave behind? It's not just the money. It's more so the memories that you're able to spend with the people that you love, both men and women in that situation. The stories you can tell. That may seem like a fairy tale to some people, and I get it. But what's worse is you not even healing to even give it a chance. So all I can honestly do, I just pray for the woman that she's able to get healing. That's all I can pray for. I pray someday maybe she might think differently. I just pray that maybe there will be some guy in her life that can help her out. Because I'm telling you, I will never be someone who will look down on single mothers. I'm not that type of guy. I will never look down on single mothers who, unfortunately, who not by choice, not by choice, unfortunately, got done dirty by scummy men with scummy behavior. I'll never be that type of guy. But to willingly put yourself in a situation where you're choosing this. We can talk about the statistics in regards to how children who are raised in single parent households, how there's so many issues, whether it be mum issues or dad issues, the dysfunctionality that comes along with it. The questions as to, why is it my dad was never there? Why is it he never cared for me? Who is my father? Do you really want a child to now have to deal with the questions of lack of identity? Do you really want to do that? Whether it be a son, whether it even be a daughter, which could lead to other negative factors as well. Whether it be kids, whether it be sons that don't know what it means to be men of character, men who know how to take responsibility for their actions, men who know how to submit to authority, men who don't have a crabs in the bucket mentality, men who are able to turn away from the wrongdoing, men who are able to be courageous for the right reasons, men who are able to resist temptation, especially sexual temptation, who don't live promiscuous life, who don't go down the path of potentially going into gangs. Or what about women? They like girls who become promiscuous because they never knew what it looked like to have a father that taught them the importance of being a woman, or being a lady, who's able to bring structure into that. Are we willing to say, you know what, I can handle all this by myself? To me, again, it definitely comes from pain. It definitely comes from a place of fear, but it could also scream selfishness, because you're thinking about, I want to be happy, but you're placing your sense of happiness before the child that you choose to be with, that you're choosing to bring into this world. I can't rock with that. I'm sorry. I cannot, in good conscience, rock with that. And maybe my bias is coming out as someone who comes from a two-parent household, because yes, I had my issues with both my mum and my dad, but I can see the redeeming qualities about what they've instilled in me. And if it wasn't for God giving me them, I don't know what type of person I would have been today. I really don't. I really don't.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Nicole, jump in for me, baby.
First of all, you literally said everything, everything, sir. Like, seriously, you said everything that really needed to be said. Um, I can only speak from, I come from a two-parent home, but I just want to speak on the fact that when you talked about the memories that can be made, the what's instilled in a child, I'm saying this. I looked at that. I listened to the video along with everyone else in the chat. And one of the things I just noticed is everything was about her. Everything was about her. It was never about, the love that I can give my child, the memories that I can give my child. We're already in a situation where our community is lacking. And I always say this, and I know a lot of the men and women get upset with me when I say this, but a lot of times we create the very men and women that we hate, because we go about these situations not understanding what is important for the child. Forget about yourself. So that actually is what it means to be a parent, is to be selfless. My parents were not perfect, but I can honestly say my parents a lot of times thought about us. Now, my mom sometimes was a little more, selfish, but I will say they thought about us. And I don't know what it's like to come from a single parent home, but what I do know is that I have friends who have come from a single parent home. And after getting in our 30s, they finally told me, you don't know how blessed you were to have both of your parents. So I get the longing and the wanting to have children. Trust me, I get it. My husband and I have been trying. I don't share this often, but I am a cancer survivor. So it is difficult. And we've already said, okay, if this doesn't work, then we'll adopt. We still plan on adopting if it does work because there are children out there that need homes. But I do think that it's selfish for us to say, I want a child. I want a child. Did you think about the child and what the child was going to want, what the child was going to need? Children need so much more than just money. They need so much more. When I think back, I don't think about the things that my parents bought me. I think about the memories that we had. I think about the fact that, my dad took me to gymnastics. My dad was there at tennis practice. My dad was there at basketball and cheerleading and this and that. I think about where my mom was there, when I was playing in band and stuff like that. And my mom was cheering us on. I think about those things. I think about the fact that when it came to work schedules, how my parents had to flip. One parent couldn't be there, so the other parent was there. Even that, you know, understanding that it does take two. This is not, I'm not shaming single parents because, like I said, I have friends who are single parents. So I understand it, but making the choice. We understand things happen, relationships fall apart. There are some rusty, dusty men out here. We know that. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about when you go out and you make a conscious decision to have a child that is only going to have one parent. And I actually know someone who is currently trying to decide on if she wants to go through the same process that this young lady went through. And I have just been telling her, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't support that. So, no, my husband is not going to be available to play, daddy. I'm not going to be able to play. Well, for one, you're in a different state and you're putting your child at so many different disadvantages. And I really hope that the ladies understand. I know sometimes I come off and it may sound like I'm just always so hard on ladies. I'm harder on us because I have higher standards for us. I am a woman and I want the best for us as women. I want the best for our children. But we cannot give our children the very best if they're missing half of themselves. That's all I wanted to say.
Powerful. Powerful.
Powerful indeed. And Nicole, thank you for sharing part of your story as well, and being vulnerable enough to share that as well. So really do appreciate you gifting us, your reality and your truth as well.
Coach,
Yeah, and yeah.
also to add on to something, another thing that I'm thinking about is this. There's this saying about toxic masculinity, right? When it comes
Mm-hmm.
to the compensation of particular behaviors. My fear also is this. Let's say now this person has gone through this of choosing to be a single mother. What if is there the potential for toxic femininity where there could be maternal gatekeeping, where the mother becomes overly protective, coddling this child essentially? So because there's a lack of a father figure in the situation, maybe the child doesn't know what it means in the context of how to be maybe assertive, to display confidence. Maybe there's a lack of structure in this situation because as a single parent, you can't play the role of being a mum and a dad at the same time. You can't do that. You can't do that for the child. So that's another issue when it comes to stuff like that. So, and here's the thing, let's hypothetically, she's saying that she has a village, of people to raise. The fact that you say you have a village, you have people to go to, shows that even though you don't want to be with someone, you're still trying to look for alternatives for another father figure. So you don't want to deal with a man directly in your life, but yet you want to indirectly bring someone else who can be the father figure. But still, the child would still be wanting to know and longing for who his or her father is. Will still want that. As much as you would want to say that my child is going to be this, my child is going to be that, how do you know when you're not even in the child's mind to know that? Because again, like Nichols, like, it's not about you in that moment. It's about what is the best alternative, what is the best solution and outcome for the child you're choosing to raise. I'm not a father, but, and I'm, God willing, someday I want to be a good husband to my future wife and a good husband to my kids, and not be reckless. Which is a part of me is angry now at the way the world is. I'm mad at the fact that the standards of how we treat one another, both men and women, have become so flipping low to the point where men don't respect women anymore or show love to women anymore, and stuff like this happens. And then in response, because of trauma, now women are moving in the same direction. It angers me at this point. When I hear stuff like this, I'm like, you're willing to become a single parent. Already there's a negative connotation based upon what you hear and stories you hear all the time about stuff like this. There's percentages and statistics put out about stuff like this. And you're willing to go through with that. All I can just hope for is that I'm praying to God that she would find the right person to help her with the situation. And this is also, it's so important for fathers and mothers to be in child's lives, because listen, there is no unity without community. There is no unity. And maybe I'm going off one, but here's the thing. The first ministry, and maybe people are not Christians, but what I'm about to say is that your first ministry before you are able to solve issues in the world is your household. The nuclear family is the bedrock of society for a reason. When children are raised without two of their parents, they become wards of the state. So the government, in essence, now become like a parent towards the child, not understanding that you do need both the father and the mother as a team to work together to instill godly, Christ-like biblical principles in whether it be the son and the daughter, in order to tackle the issues of life itself out there. That is the ideal situation. That's why, in a way, the family mimics the Trinity, because Christ is united. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, they're united as one, as a family. And when you're deliberately wanting to do it on your own, you're setting yourself up potentially for failure. I'm not saying maybe the child will grow up to be a success. Maybe. But who's to say that the child may not want to desire a family of his or her own, based by what he or she never had in his own lifetime? Because who's to say the child won't go out and start seeing, couples together in terms of a family, and think, why is it I don't have that? Why is it I don't have that? And then questions have to be asked like, Mom, who's my dad? Why is it I was never given this? Like, I want to know. I want to know. What would the mum say then? And what would her reasons or justifications for doing so? Because of a previous situation I had. So because of that, I wanted to protect my feelings and my emotions. And I didn't want... What are you going to tell the child? How are you going to tell the child that, you know what, I just wanted to have you for the sake of having you? Because I didn't want to deal with... Would you lie to the child to try and spare the child's feelings? I want to know, what could you say to justify what you're willing to put the child through because of what you yourself want to fulfill, and feel like you want the entitlement of having a child because of the experience? You might also maybe look for a partner and look for adoption. And maybe, yes, it's not a perfect situation, but it's at least an alternative. So at least they're still mimicking the structure of a nuclear family. That's it. That's all I've got to say here.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Camille knows. Welcome to the conversation. How you doing, sis? You're right.
Good, thanks. Thanks for adding me on.
That's all right.
To be honest, I just jumped on, so I haven't heard much from this live stream. I do watch you from time to time, but I haven't heard much from this one. But I'm quite glad to see that it's not like bashing single mothers, and it's or maybe like you're seeking for advice. And I listened to the last maybe 10 minutes of what it's Jevin who said as well. Very, very wise thoughts. Everything that he said, to be honest, I'm quite glad to hear these convos. Yeah, I have a few questions. I don't know if you touched on it already. Apologies if you did, because I just joined. So for example, because we released on my channel some videos about there was this 51-year-old woman that she basically done all her career, reached what she wanted in life, everything she wanted, and then she couldn't find a man. She was 51 years old, decided to move back to her parents' house and adopt a child and have that family herself, because she just couldn't find a man. Well, she was quite picky. So what do you view towards adoption as choosing to be a single parent for adoption? Would you view that as still selfish, or is that a good thing?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, we haven't answered it, and actually, some people were asking in the chat, so you've picked up a really good question. I think it's a beautiful thing to do. The child is in the system, has no parents at all. And if you are a single parent, you can offer that child some love that it never had before. So to adopt that child is a loving thing. You know what I mean? If you have the capacity to do it and share love and care for that child, absolutely. I would love to see it. Not a problem at all. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you see, that was my thoughts as well. But my partner Henry, the one you saw a picture, we have a channel. He basically was saying that by you doing that, you also might have taken a chance from that child to have two parents, because they could have been adopted by two parents. And I know it's not easy to adopt a child; it takes long, which makes it sound like, I guess, there was a high chance they could have been adopted by two parents. But you adopting as a single parent, maybe you're causing them to not have a chance to have two parents as well. So what do you think towards that?
Yeah, no, that could be a possibility.
In that scenario.
No, I still think I still think that it's better to have that child adopted with a one parent. I think that child's in the system. You know what I mean? And from just 2 or 3 people, I'm not going to say I've spoke to masses of people who have been in the system. I'm going to say I spoke to 2 or 3 people. That system is no joke. That system that children get put into is not you're in a thing, and it was cool, we were taken care of, loved, the 2-3 people that I spoke to, that's all I spoke to. So there could be a different experience. You don't want to be in that system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me personally, you'd rather see that child in that single parent household if that person can show love and care, right? Because that person can offer something that that child doesn't have already, right? Now, of course, there could be a 2-parent household who will come in and adopt that child, but there's just so many kids out there that you can adopt. You know what I mean? There's so many of them. So I wouldn't necessarily be thinking about that parent adopting that child and taking away from 2-parent household. You know what I mean? And then we got to look at apologies. Then we got to look at the age as well, the age of that child as well, because when people are coming with 2 parents,
a very young child, basically a newborn, so it could be
a newborn.
Yeah, so that's very good point, because I was also saying, if you want to do a good job, adopt maybe a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, even a 8-year-old, because they usually get left out, especially teenagers. But yeah, obviously she went for the newborn baby.
Newborn.
Yeah.
Again, I would say I think what the issue here is that newborn, both parents are not there for that child. So even having one is better than none, because that child will at least know that there's somebody who genuinely cares, loves for them, that was willing to take them from the system and actually take them in. Whereas we're discussing a situation where a person intentionally puts that child at a deficit. That child is coming from a deficit. So whether it's 1 or 2, I'm happy that that child has someone who cares and loves for it, because we can say that the 2 parents might have come and grabbed them. They may have done. We don't know. You know what I mean? Like we would be talking about something that we can't actually measure, that two parents will come along and collect this child. We don't know. You know what I mean? We don't know if they would pass the test. We don't know if they would pass the stringent requirements, etc. So I think to say they would take away from that, I get what they're coming from, but the hypothetical in this instance, I don't think it fits, because that child is already in the system, you know, and we don't know 100% of that child would be able to go to 2 parents. We don't know. We could, that child's already there. So I'd rather have 1, you know what I mean, than wait and let's say it gets to 3, it gets to 4, it gets to 5. What if 2 parents never come?
Yeah, but would you not say then if she's single, she should go for children that will definitely, most likely won't get, you know, parents? Do you know what I mean? So
wait, say that part again. Sorry, I missed that part. Sorry, babe.
Do you not think single women that, you know, they chase their career, eventually they, you know, and they couldn't find a partner, they're too picky, for them not to be selfish, they should definitely go for a child if they want to adopt, the one that is less likely, you know, to be adopted. So not a newborn, you know, like 10 years old, 8. So would that still not make you quite selfish? Because obviously that's the topic, I guess.
Yeah, no. Again, I love the questions, by the way. Thank you, because it's insightful, and I'll open up to the panel in a second or 2 as well. I think again here, great question again. So, for instance, could it be looked at as selfish as her going to choosing a child that may be more likely? Let's say we knew the stats. I don't know the stats, but let's say we knew the stats. Let's say the stats were in favor of that child having a better chance of collecting 2 parents at younger age, which I think anecdotally, I think we can all probably agree that yes, you know, it probably would have a better chance of having 2 parents if it's a newborn, you know, and in that particular instance. But again, once more, I think my key stance is that child is already somewhere where it's disadvantaged. Yeah. So irrespective of whether 1 or 2 come along, someone who loves that, who's going to love that child, is coming along. Now, that won't stop the situation from things happening in terms of, again, if it's single father, single mother, whether there'll be aspects of trauma that will happen there, but that wasn't induced by you. That was already what the child is going to have to deal with because the parents weren't around for whatever reason that's happening. So I'd rather see that child with a single parent. This is why even to a degree, parts of me like, you know what? I know that I don't necessarily agree with LGBTQA, but if they love that child and they're adopting kids, I can't scream about it. The kid has no parent. Like, to be in a place where there's no one, where it feels like no one loves you, that is carnage. You know what I mean? So even for me, from a Christian perspective, I'm like, if they decide they're going to adopt 2 kids, I'm not going to stand away. Because if they generally can show love to that kid, irrespective of whether it comes from 2 women or 2 men, I'm going to be like, do you know what? That child needs someone to love it. Because if it doesn't, carnage can ensue. People that don't have love in their life, people that don't have people that love them, honestly, carnage can ensue. So I'd rather see that than even see that child go through a system. From what I've heard, the system is not a place that you want to see kids in. It is very, from what I've heard, psychologically detrimental. But I think Jeff wanted to answer a question, or you just answered, Camille. So thank you again for bringing these good questions. Go for it, Jeff. Jeff wants to answer the question.
Yeah, I was also going to add to what Camille was saying. I think also when choosing children and looking at them, you also got to look into their profiles. When it comes to the mental health issues, especially at a younger age, maybe 8 or 10, sometimes when you read some of the stories, whether they may have some learning difficulties, maybe ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, or if they have been children that have unfortunately have gone through emotional, some form of physical abuse, you got to look into their profile. It's like choosing children, as well as, I do agree in the aspect of, because they're already in the system, the fact that they already have one person who's looking to take that responsibility, because you never know. Who's to say, this is just throwing it out there. Let's hypothetically say that one particular person, because said child may have suffered a negative experience dealing with maybe 2 parents, or a particular parent in that situation that was not good, maybe say that of that similar gender, if you now bring that one in, if they're 2 parents, maybe that might be a trauma. You just don't know. But the fact that you're willing to even take that on board to, you know what, be a beacon of light in that child, especially if they're coming from a place where just a lot of toxic situations, is better than having no one there. So
Yeah. Have you heard, I don't know if this is a bit off topic, but have you heard of this big YouTube couple that 3 years ago, I think, when just Corona started, they adopted a child, and then because I can see the chat is saying a lot about like if they have mental health illness or things like ADHD, it might be difficult. And there was a big YouTube couple that adopted
Yeah.
a child, gave it back
yeah, I heard about that.
because they struggled.
I heard about that. I think it was apparently from China at that time. I heard about that.
Yes, they adopted them, gave it back because they said they really struggled. They didn't understand how much of a struggle it's gonna be because the child had something. I don't remember what they had, but some mental health, I think, or maybe even physical.
Mhm.
And they had it, I don't know for how long, maybe 6 months or so. And then I think people said that they kind of just done it maybe to their views, things like that.
Yeah, basically, and that's a separate topic. I'll just touch on that. I don't like it when people use their children and monetize off from that, especially if you're dealing with children from the system like that. So I think they made a response video basically talking, like crying about how they're sorry that they had to do what they had to do, basically saying that the reason why they're not going to talk about it is because, you know, they want to protect their privacy. But too late for that one when you decided to monetize off a child anyway. But to say it's not an easy thing adopting children. It's not an easy thing because there's so much that goes into it. But that is when they're already in the system. This is far different from someone who's literally choosing to now sign up to become a single mother when she didn't have to, right? It's a whole different ball game in this one, where in anything it should be more focused on doing self-work, on healing, whether it be going to CBT therapy, whether it go to counseling sessions and stuff like that. I'll just simply say this to wrap it up. For me, parenthood, whether you're adopting or whether you're basically birthing a child into this world, it is a beautiful thing. It is a privilege and it's a blessing when you're able to bring children into this world. The moment you're able to see whether it's a boy or girl for the first time in your eyes. Like even me as a kid, like I remember when my dad, he told me, oh, my bro, he's born, like my little brother. And I was literally running up, like literally jumping for joy when I found out that I have a new brother. And I saw my little bro for the first time. That's just me as a brother. Now imagine I'm a dad or a mom in that situation and I realize, raw, the miracle of life, the joy of life itself. It's like another chapter in a child's life where they can potentially birth new generations of people that could be game changers, leaders of a new generation in the world today. But with that comes heavy responsibility. If loving a child, right, it takes more than just simply financial provision, money, because you cannot take money with you when you die. But in the time frame in where you're living life, what memories you cultivate in terms of teaching the child and raising the child up? Money is a tool. Money is a tool. You can serve two masters. You either be a master of the money, you don't let the money master you. You use the money in service of taking care of the people that you love. That is what the responsibility is as men when it comes to us protecting, but we do it out of a place of love. It's the principles that you instill into the child, not just the money aspect of it, especially when looking after your significant other. But again, look, I'm not saying that fathers are perfect. I'm not saying that, you know what, we get it all correct. I understand that it's a lot more easier. Sometimes, yes, it can be a headache to do with the opposite sex. But the beauty about life is it's about learning to get along with each other. But choosing to go on it on your own and thinking you're not going to deal with issues, that might be a little bit idealistic as well, especially if you're not coming from a place of genuine healing to see the positive in dealing with that. You have to have a balanced perspective in dealing with the opposite sex. But if you only see the negative, and not see the positive at the same time, you're doing yourself a disservice when coming to raising children. And potentially your issues, think about it, if me, Kojo, and other people coming from two-parent households are talking about issues we've experienced, even from what we've seen, the negative energy, the negative dynamics we have witnessed, how much more so if you are a single parent? You don't know what you could potentially pass on to your child. That could also be a legacy within itself, what you pass on in terms of behavioral traits that said child will carry on to the next generation and the generation after that. You don't know. You can't foresee into the future everything. But at the very least, you can have a structure put in place to at least mitigate some of these things. Yeah, that's it.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Nicole, I haven't heard from you, and then Estella.
So
I'm going to keep everyone to 2 minutes. I'm going to keep everyone. I know you'll be shorter than that, but I'm going to keep everyone to 2 minutes just so we can keep the conversation flowing. But go for it, babe.
So I would just say I agree with you in saying, especially you, Kojo, when you said at least a child having one parent. I think this is a totally different conversation, though, between someone personally making the decision to bring life into this world versus adopting someone's child that they decided to bring into this world. One, in both instances, neither children chose to be here. Two, I too have heard horror stories about children in foster homes. So it's just, I mean, it's the luck of the draw with that. But thirdly, I think when we talk about having children, and I'm speaking as a woman who did my research, we did our research, while trying to have children. And even now I'm always reading as a Black woman, the healthcare aspect, and I actually, by trade, I don't talk about this either a lot, but by trade, I'm a physician's assistant. And I'm telling you right now that the amount of issues that go on with Black women while giving birth, I have seen a lot of men advocate for their wives or their partners in those rooms. It is not the same way if you're choosing to have a child by yourself. We typically see women, the mother or the sister or just other women, kind of in panic mode, while the men who do go into panic mode, but something snaps into them and says, no, you're going to help my wife. No, you're going to help my woman. You're going to help my girlfriend. There's something about it. Even if they don't know what's going on wrong, right? They know something has gone wrong. So it's two totally different things. And lastly, I would just say with adoption, like you said, Kojo, that child is already missing both parents. That child is not getting a loving home. That child, a lot of times, and I'm not saying this is always the case. There's never a always or 100%. But remember, foster parents are actually getting money to foster children. And sometimes when you see foster parents that have a lot of children, they're getting a lot of checks. So I think saying, I'm willing to foster then adopt, because I would always suggest fostering then adopt, but fostering then adopting a child, I think is the best route for the child, even if it's just one parent. But I would always say, before you even go through adoption, you need to put yourself through a psych eval. You need to put yourself into therapy, and in understanding that, especially if this child is old enough to understand that, you know, they biologically did not come from you, that child is automatically going to have questions like, why wasn't I chosen? Why didn't my mother or my father keep me? Why am I in your house? Why are you not my biological parent? Right? There's always those types of things that come into play with situations like this. So you need to be mentally ready to handle those types of questions. And we know parenting, you know, my parents always say parenting doesn't come with a manual. If it did, they would have been the perfect parents. Doesn't come with a manual, but definitely make sure that you're getting those psyche evals, you're getting therapy, and that you stay in therapy. And depending on the child's age, be ready to have that child start therapy. So that was just what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. Estella?
Hey, how y'all doing? I just wanted to come up real quick, and I respect this panel. I respect this show a lot. I definitely have to just agree to disagree with a lot of different points that were made since I came up. But what I wanted to speak on was, and Nicole, you probably have a lot more insight because it sounds like you and your husband together have done a lot more research. And I think Camille, you said you and your husband have looked into adoption. I live in the United States, so I'm not sure where Nicole or Camille live. But as a single person, a single woman who's done a little bit of research into adoption, and also done a little bit of research into insemination for myself personally, and also as a person who knows tons and tons of people who have been in foster care, who have grown up adopted, who have adopted children, because it's quite commonplace for where I live. I live in the Bay Area, California. So it's super common to know people who are adopted, who have adopted, and who have been in foster care. It's a huge issue actually here. I would say that there's a lot that you guys are speaking on, and I'm not pertaining to like Nicole and Camille. It sounds like you guys have obviously and clearly done a lot more research. But the whole thing about adopting as a single person is extremely expensive. And for someone like me, who's a pun intended mediocre average woman, it's not affordable for me to do. And they make it that way also, too, because there's tons of red tape, yellow tape, all kinds of like things that you have to prepare for to be a single parent. Where I live in California, it's a requirement that you foster before you can even adopt. So then that's a whole other frame. Red tape and yellow tape comes in. So adopting children as a single person is not. Hold on. It's was calling me. Adopting children as a single person in today's time, it's not really that. It's not that commonplace. So I would just say, like, I would pause on that conversation unless if you really have a lot more insight. And it sounds like the two people that are up here who have actually probably looked into adoption, they're both married people, and they know how hard it is as married people to become foster parents and the cost and all of those things. A lot of single people simply can't afford to adopt, and they're not going to be able to get through the psychological warfare that it goes through to
Yeah,
adopting. Even if you let me finish really quick. I gotta go back to work, and I have 2 minutes up here. I'm gonna hop off. I swear, because I do want to hear more about your insight. Even as someone who could afford it, I know two people who have adopted children. They were married at the time. They ended up divorcing, and they're still raising their children. These two women are making like $200,000 and upward, and it is difficult for them. But they have the financial means to be able to provide for. And when they actually adopted their children, they were married. So I feel like that has a bigger reason to do with why they actually were able to adopt. And so these kids are actually adopted still by two parents. So marrying as adopting and fostering as a single person, someone who actually cares about children and raising children, it's really not that simple. So I would just kind of cease talking about that unless if you guys really understand and research it. And to let you know, it only cost me about $1,300 to go buy some sperm and have a baby by myself. So I'm just gonna let you know that's way cheaper, and it's easy. We can agree to disagree about the whole surrogate thing and doing it by yourself, that's fine. I'm not going to argue about that. But I just wanted to say, talking about adopting as a single person being easier or being a better option, you kind of don't know what you're talking about. So I just wanted to come up here and put that out there. I'm going to continue to listen. And thank you for having me up real quick.
Let me quickly correct that, because I think that's let me make it very clear. When we first started saying about adoption, I never said it was easier. Never did. You supplanted that idea. I didn't say that. And I say that because I want to be very, very clear.
You said it might be better. You might be better. It may be better, but it's not. The route is not that easy, so that's why you don't see more of it.
So we can't debate on that, but if again, because if I've stated first and foremost, I've never said it's easier. First and foremost, number two,
correct.
If we're saying about which is better, of course, if that child is coming from a place where it has no parents already, and you decide to adopt, regardless of the red tape that's coming in that way, right? We're not saying it's easier. Regardless of whether there's red tape in the way, we're saying this will be a better choice, because you're not putting that child intentionally in a situation where they don't have a father figure. So
all I'm saying to it is the reason you're not seeing more people opt to do that is because it's extremely difficult. It can be extremely difficult. I'm not saying it does not happen.
Stella, it's besides the point.
Yeah.
Because that's not the point we're making. It's not about whether it's hard or not.
No. I'm telling you about what the system makes it to be difficult. They don't want to issue out children to single parents. Mm-hmm. You're saying it as if it's like it would be better. They do not make it easy for people who are single to adopt. I think that's what we're misunderstanding. So I'll just get off.
I'm not misunderstanding anything. You're arguing a point. I'm not arguing. And the reason why I'm correcting it is because I want to make it very clear. Because I don't. For the last few weeks, we've been having Hold on.
You're not understanding.
Hold on. There is something to be corrected, because when you first started, when you finished your point, you were making it as if we didn't know what we're talking about. You said unless you have more information, you can't. I would advise you not talking about it. So I'm correcting you because I'm putting the point in perspective. Hold on. I'm correcting you because that's not the point we make. Hold on. Because when I said about it, I didn't. Again, that's why I've said certain points. I've said first and foremost. Again, I want to make it very clear. Nobody said it's easier. Number two, here's a reason why we said it's better. It would be better route to go down this route, regardless of whether it's harder or not, because the child is not being put in a position where it doesn't have the father figure. So you're putting that child in a position of disadvantagedness. So when you're arguing about how hard it, hold on. When you're having an argument about the fact that if it's harder or not, that's not the argument. We're not arguing about that. We can discuss about how hard it can be, and that can be part of the solution. But what we're saying is,
I was telling you why you don't see more of it. You're making a sense that it would be better, but the reason you're not seeing more people attached to that is because it's not easy.
It's irrelevant.
I'm not arguing with you at all.
It's irrelevant because that's not the argument we're making. Whether people are choosing it to make it harder is not the point we're making. We are talking about whether it's right. It's not about whether it's hard. That's what I'm saying. The point's irrelevant. You're derailing the conversation to take it left, but that's not the argument. The argument is about whether it was right to go down that path. And we're saying the child has to be taken into consideration, that when you bring life into the situation and say, I'm choosing a position, not people who already are married or people in relationships or people who ended up having a kid. We know the things do happen. So we're not arguing that point. What I'm trying to tell you is the argument isn't whether it's the easier to do or not. We're not arguing that point.
I wasn't arguing that either. You missed what I said, and that's okay. You did miss what I said, because that wasn't my argument at all. You corrected me as far. I did say easier. You did say better, and I agree. It would be better. My point was you guys were making speaking points about the adoption process and the fostering, and all I wanted to make clear was that it actually is very difficult, and why you're probably not seeing or experiencing more single people how you're recommending would be the right way and the better way is because all the red line and tape, it makes it extremely difficult, and people opt out. If they foster children who have a lot of issues and problems, which they do. I have friends who work in the legal system, who work in foster care and adoption. It's an extremely sinister system. It's absolutely disgusting the way the children get treated and monopolized as money for the government to earn, for the state's money to earn. It's completely crazy. And the people who've actually gone through the processes of the foster system and going through those programs, it takes a long time. That was all I was saying. You did correct me, and I stand corrected. You did not say that it would be easier. You said it would be better. My stance was I would pause on that unless if you really understand how this works, because it's not very easy for people. And that's why you don't see more single people doing it. They don't make it easy for people on purpose. They would rather for those children to go to double parent households and families that are like married and things like that. And that's why I'm saying your point is taken, but it's moot because it's not what they want for those kids. And that's why a lot of kids end up staying in foster care until they're 18 and 21.
So
And they
do you
get siphoned into a
think,
bigger part of the system.
just a question, so do you think they make the adoption process quite difficult? So, to vet people, and for example, because some women do prioritize their careers, and they try to date men not seriously till they're like 40, 50. Then after that, not a lot of men are looking at them, not a lot of men want them, and then that's when the body clock is ticking. We can't have children usually when we're 50. We can't find a man, so then obviously we can choose adoption. So do you think there's this reason why they make it so difficult? So maybe women would be encouraged to find the partner and have the children, for example, than just chase their career, things like that. Obviously there's more reasons why they make it difficult, but like, what's your thoughts?
Having had discussions with some of my friends who are lawyers for the state and they work with children in foster care and adoption.
Sorry, your audio's breaking up a bit. I don't know if it's just for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hold on. Let me mute everybody and see what happens. Go for it. Go for it now. So let's see if it works now.
I would say, can you hear me better?
Shall we try one more time?
I'll just turn my Bluetooth off and see if that makes a difference. Got it.
Perfect.
I would say, having had this conversation with a couple of my friends who work in the legal system, specifically with foster care and family care, it gets a little deep political, into deep political conversation. But yeah, they make it difficult because they keep these kids in foster care because the state earns money. Well, at least in the state of California, to keep people in the system, because essentially those children will be siphoned into the greater prison system of America. Now that's how America works. I don't know where you live, Camille, but we can get into a whole topic of modern day slavery or whichever or whatnot, but they need to keep people in the system in order for the system to work. That's why the prison system in this nation is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and why most of our everyday products are invested in the prison industrial system, because it's a part of the foundation of this nation. So that's my simple answer, and that's nuanced, but that would be my most real answer to you. And having had conversations with people who work within the system, judges and lawyers. But yeah,
It's actually the same way as to why they funnel and I'm just sorry, since you said that, that's kind of like how they give out all of these and y'all gonna get mad at me, but this is why they give out a lot of grants and scholarships to Black women, but they don't actually give them out to Black men. The part of the reason why they do that, and a lot of you all don't realize that, but there are more scholarships for Black women to go into the medical field than there are for Black men to go into the medical field. The reason being is that if you separate the two, women typically kind of like goes back to and I don't want to go back into that conversation, but it kind of separates us. So women typically don't want to date down, so to speak, but it's all like how they have divided both the man and the woman, and then you divide them from the children. All of that feeds into a complex where it is white supremacy. But I just wanted to say that it affects our children the most, and that's how you end up with a lot of our children not being able to read. This is why they push single parenthood in our communities more so than any other community. If you look at any other community, you will find that having children out of wedlock is shamed. Having children and choosing to have children without your husband or without your wife, it is shamed. A lot of people don't realize that, but I grew up in a neighborhood that was not too far from, 7, 8 miles down from people who drove Bentleys to school. That was normal for them. But if you look at where, actually they have abortion clinics, they're actually in those white neighborhoods, but they're disguised as something else. But sorry, I just wanted to add that in. It's a crazy secret, quote unquote, that is kind of kept within their communities.
Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. Shanji, what's your thoughts? Let's go back to original conversation. I feel like we derailed. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love her, Stella, but that was a derail because it had nothing to do with what we're talking about. So, Shanji, can we go back to the original conversation? What we're talking about? What's your thoughts? I think you had a different perspective as well because you was in a chat and you had a different perspective. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Talk to me. Oh, Shanji, we there? Shanji is not there. Shanji, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think
right.
she said you should bring her up. I think she can.
Let me take her down and bring her back up. Okay, so I think she's. Let me just bring her back up again. Shanji, you're up now. You should be up. You should be able to be able to converse now. If you open your mic, you should be able to hear you. Let me show you. If you unmute yourself, Shanji, you can say anything. Are you there? All right, I'll let you come in a second or two. So just to reset the room where we were at, we're having a really good conversation. Camille was asking some really great questions about, the ethical, I guess, choice between choosing, whether a single parent chooses to go into adoption versus the option of, as we were talking about choosing to be a single mother in this current crop. And we've got some real good conversation around the aspect in terms of, the ethical choice that comes into play. Which one is better to choose from if we had that option on the table? So it was a good conversation. And previously, if you haven't joined us, what the whole conversation was about, I saw a video which inspired this conversation. I was watching a video by a young lady who was talking about taking the process on and going into single motherhood by choice. Okay, I see Shanji. She's chosen the thing by choice. So hopefully we can get some real good conversation continually and have different thoughts as well around that. You go.
Could
Shanji.
you remind me the reasons or the reason why she chose to be a single mother?
Yes. After Shanji goes, I'll give you the reasons because I've actually written it down. So I'll give it to you again, Camille. Thank you. Shanji, yeah, go for it.
Hey, Kojo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, is it echoing?
A little bit, but you're good. Go for it.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Okay, so yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned coming back to the initial conversation, because the approach to this topic for me, it was a little harsh. I think we need to maybe be a little inquisitive about this topic as opposed to just labeling her as selfish or any of those things. And that's kind of what threw me off about it, because we really don't know the background to this. We don't know the emotional turmoil that she's had attempting to partner. We don't know that. We don't know that journey, what that looked like. We all know that Black women have had to navigate very unconventional circumstances. So I don't know if we can necessarily jump out there and just say, oh, I don't need a man and I don't care to have a man. I just think that's unfair to assume. Now, we did listen to a little bit of what she had to say, but we just can't make that assumption. And I think selfish, it just kind of triggered me. I'm just like, why exactly are we labeling her these things as if she's saying that men are not valuable for a family? I think that her ideal would be to have a man in the house. But if we're out here in these dire circumstances and she really wants to have a child, hopefully she has a village. Unfortunately, the village is kind of dissipated in these times. But hopefully there's some uncles there's some, maybe the grandfather, maybe someone can step in and be that man in that space. I'm speaking as someone that came from a two-parent household. My dad was in the military. I'm an Air Force baby. I was actually born in Howingham, England. Shout out overseas. He came over to South Dakota, and my mom left him because he was cheating. She's from DC. She moved to DC 2 days. I remember this journey taken with my mom. She took him back. My mom was probably the most healthy and the nicest, sweetest, most stable person when he was not in that home. And it's been a chaotic, narcissistic environment ever since, and they are still together. And me and my sister have gone through all sorts of traumas that I will not name, and we're still in therapy. So I'm speaking as someone that has come from a different circumstance, if you will. So I don't like the umbrella of two-parent household equals a happy child or happy children, because that's not always the case. That's really all I had.
No, I appreciate it, Sean. Thank you for sharing that. I want
No
to again
problem.
qualify my first statement, first few statements I made earlier on. I'm not saying no. Ultimately, two-parent household is better than one. Ultimately, if the parents are healthy, two is better than one, right? What I'm saying is, and myself and Jeff also shared earlier on, having two parents does not guarantee that child comes out perfect, clean, and amazing, right? Because you still need to have healthy parents, but you got a better chance with two parents coming into the play, right? So I made that very clear earlier on. I made that very, very clear earlier on. And the reason why I'm also trying to be direct because I want to make sure that people don't miss what I'm saying to them. I'm saying from the very jump. Earlier on, I said it straight. I am not guaranteeing that two is better than one if they're unhealthy, right? And that Jeff gave an experience about how when he had two parents, it was problematic. There were some parts that were problematic. I've always shared that having a father that wasn't as emotionally present was difficult, but he never had a father. So he's having to even undo certain things he's never even seen, but he's affected by. So what I have to do now is make sure I've built on a platform that he's built and make sure that when I come with my kids, I'm going to be emotionally present, I'm going to be healthy, and I'm going to be there not only financially, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally for my kids. Two oftentimes is better than the one. If we're talking about healthy parents, there's no competition. And what I'm saying right now is people, and I made this very clear as well so that no one misses it. I made it very clear that it's not about people who are in a circumstance who end up by being a single parent. I spoke specifically to this example of being that if you choose to be a single mother, in this case, you go to a sperm bank and you choose to become a single parent, saying you can do it all good by yourself. It is inherently selfish because it is. Because the children are affected. Shanji just told us a beautiful story about how you were affected by two. There are children out there who are affected by two, who are affected by one too, right? So we're not saying that you're free if you have two parents. What we're saying is it becomes inherently selfish if you then birth a child on purpose without the father being involved and act as if the father does not have an impact towards that child, because that's where it really comes from. And I made it clear that way because I want people to understand I'm not trying to be, some Kevin Samuels kind of situation. I want to make it clear the gravity of what we're talking about is detrimental to generations. It's not just you. So when I say it's selfish, it is selfish.
So,
I mean, what I would say is, before you go, Camille, I want to ask Sanji a question, right? Because she said something really beautiful, and I do actually like what she said, but I want to challenge her and ask her a question. Shanji, if a man comes on here and he says, no, something that if a man comes on here, if I put a video and a man says, you know what? I abandoned my kids. I left them. Would you say he's selfish? That's the question I'm asking Shanji. I don't know if you're there. Oh, I think she's gonna come back. She has to come back another one. I think she can
He's
hear.
having to come in and out.
Yeah, sorry about that, babe. Wait, let me remove the other ones here. Yeah, no. So I was asking a question. So if a man was to say like if he abandoned his kids, would you say he's selfish for abandoning the kids?
Absolutely.
So I want to ask this: what would your first thing be like? I need to understand where he's coming from. How he got there. I need to fully understand where it's coming from. Would you say, well, that's just selfish? Why would a man just abandon his kids?
I think it's a false equivalency to kind of compare the two, because I think in that circumstance he's coming in already having a responsibility. He already knows
That
that this is something that he has to be responsible for. So if you made a decision to abandon, that's absolutely selfish. Now I'm going into a situation saying that this is a responsibility that I'm going to take on. I'm doing what needs to be done to make sure the child is taken care of. I don't see how that equates to the same.
I'll show you how it equates the same. Something I've been saying to you guys for the past few weeks about is sometimes women are very gracious with other women when they make certain decisions. They'll be like, I need to understand where she's coming from, what emotions she felt, how she got to that position. When it comes to men, it's straight, he's selfish, he's a narcissist, he's a prick, he's this, he's that. There's no, oh, let me try and understand the pathology. No. He was
No,
abusive, but maybe
I agree with that, Kojo. I agree with that. No, I'm gonna tell you this. I'm a counselor, so I talk to men and boys all the time. I do health and wellness practitioner, and I talk to them. I hear their stories. So I'm not coming from a judgy perspective. I understand, and I've heard and seen all different types of circumstances. So what I'm saying is, seeing the other part of this, and grown men that know that they have children, and they decide to take to step out. We don't have the opportunity to step out as moms. How many mothers that you know can decide to say, okay, I'm abandoning this child without being completely condemned by the entire community and completely broken down and judged? We can't do that. We can't say, okay, I've been through trauma, so I can't be a mom anymore. Or I'm
you're right.
going through financial hardship, so I can't be a mom anymore. We don't get that opportunity. So I don't think it's fair to say, okay, let's see what this man is going through as to why he's stepping away from his children. I don't think that that's fair.
Why is it not
Not
fair
at all.
when a woman chooses to abandon the father figure in her role, in the role of that child? Because she chose to be a single mother. We're not talking about people who are in circumstances. Somebody chose to inseminate themselves and remove the father from the situation. You abandoned the father figure role, and how is that not selfish? And saying the exact same thing as a man.
Little black.
Hold on, Ken. Hold on. I just want to change you to just finish. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Sanji, go for it.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say that in that particular circumstance, again, I think that going into it for me, I do think a man is valuable in a child's life. Now, I don't know if that's always going to look like being a husband or a boyfriend or whatever that looks like, but if you have some man that's taking on that role, even if he is just a donor, I know some people that have that situation where they have a donor and the man is still in the life of the child. They're just not married to him. So it just, to me, it just depends on the circumstances. Again, I mean, if you go in, I would hope that you have a man that could be there to be that figure. But it may not look like a husband, Kojo. It's looking a little scarce out here.
I'm not saying a husband. It doesn't have to be a husband. That's why I said I'm making it very clear that a woman has chosen, whether she's married or not married, doesn't make no difference to me. The position is about the fact that she's vacated the man's role, right? She said, you can go. We don't need you here, right? You, the father who is meant to give the seed out, the sperm from your loins, you are not needed here, right?
Okay.
So and that's why I said I also held the people accountable who are giving their sperm, because I'm like, yo, you need to be accountable for where you're putting your sperm. Like, what you should be asking questions where it's going to, because you're also part of the cycle. But we're focused on the women here because now you've chosen to be in a place where, and if you're a counselor, you know already the impact of a child, especially if it's a son growing up with a mother without the father figure, irrespective of if you love that child or not, is problematic to put that child in that position when it's not a situation that's happened to you. You get what I'm saying to you? Like, it's not like you were in a relationship, we doing our thing, and then I'm like, I decide to be one of those crazy men and abandon my kid. And at that point, you're not going to ask questions about my pathology. You're just going to say he's selfish for abandoning his kid. I'm saying she's selfish too, because she's refusing to see the pathology behind her decision as to why she got there, but how it impacts that child. That child suffers. She's winning because she's got what she wanted. But that child, we both know, is the impact. And I'm saying that I'm calling her selfish because it's easy to call her that, because when we call men who abandon their kids, it's selfish. We don't ask questions. I don't need to explain pathology and be like, how did you get there? I'm going to say you're selfish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. If he mentioned it being unnecessary to have a man in the home, then I have to disagree. Or around as a male figure, however that looks, I have to disagree. Now, I didn't hear her say that. Maybe I missed that part of the conversation. But yeah, if you're disregarding the male role, then yeah, that's when I have to stop and say, no, we can't do that to each other. Man or woman, we can't do that. We can't exclude any of our contributions within the family structure. That's just not going to work.
Okay. I appreciate that, Shanji. And I appreciate a different perspective as well, by the way.
Thank you, Kojo.
I actually appreciate that. Camille wants to say something real quick, and then Kenny, you can go after. So Camille, go for it, and then Kenny will go after.
Yeah. So Henry's with me from my channel, so yeah, I think that as
Yeah,
well.
guys, I was just gonna great show, to be honest. We've just been listening. Very insightful. Just wanted to add, I mean, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. The data we have is a child born into a two-parent household is much better off. Now there are exceptions to the rule where, a child could be born into a two-parent household, still don't turn out to be great. But if a woman intentionally step out at the gate saying I intend to have a child without the child's father being in the child's life, it's not only selfish, it's very ignorant. So regardless of what the emotional damage would have been or what made her come to that decision, so I think we should just stay away from trying to understand why she made that decision. We should understand it is a wrong decision and it's a selfish one.
I appreciate it, Captain. Thank you for that. Kenny, jump in for me.
Yeah, this is the thing that I'm going to say, right? Women have too many codes, and it's very difficult for a woman to indict another woman. And sometimes they are very selective on what another woman does, because they don't want to be judged the same. Let me put it this way. Most of us know the reason why, and I believe that Shanji herself know the reason why women don't walk away from relationship in the West. The reason why they don't walk away from relationship in the West is because of incentive. They do get incentivized if they stay and the man walk away. So in most cases, women will verbally or emotionally push a man away. No man walks away from his family. No man walks away from his child. No man walks away from the thing that he knows that is his legacy. But a man will walk away from a woman with big mouth, with bad character, with bad attitude. Shanji knows that. So she's just acting like she doesn't know that, oh, a woman this. No, we all know. Most men that walk away out of marriage, out of their children, didn't walk away because they want freedom to do whatever. No, it's because they believe that if they stay there, they will end up in jail. But if they leave, it's better off. Okay? So we should just stop this stuff that, oh, men walk away from marriage, men walk away from relationship, men actually stay. Just check this. From where we come from, we know that women don't get incentivized. What do? They stay. Or they leave. And they know when they leave, they don't live with a child. Guess what they do? They end up staying. Because they're not going to get a child, which means they're not going to get child support. We have to be realistic that when the reason why people can come to in the West and decide to become a single mother is because there is an incentivisedness in being a single mother. If you take away the incentive of being a single mother, I tell you, single mother will drop by 80% in 1 year, not in 2 years, in 1 year. If the government comes out tomorrow and say no more incentiveness for any woman that has a child outside wedlock, we're not going to allow the guy to pay child support, except if it is something that has to do with abuse or physical abuse that can be quantified, right? Every woman will close up. I'm telling you that for real. They will use the 41 what do they call it? 41 prescription, or maybe 41 whatever they call it, in order to prevent pregnancy, right? They will all use it. They will use it. We all know that for real. But at the same time, when somebody morally comes out and said, I got to go to the sperm bank and get a sperm and then be able to have a child, I don't need a father in the life. That is the worst thing you can do to a child. You're doing it for your own ego. You're doing it because you want to do whatever you want to do. When a man is in the house, or when a woman is in the house and decide to get pregnant by another man that she does not love, She does not have any emotional attachment, but a man she know that will not fight for the custody of the child. She did it on purpose because she wants to raise that child by herself, but it's also detrimental to the child. Because when you decide to be a single mother, you are a single mother because it makes you take advantage of the system that incentivizes you. But what you're doing is that you're raising the next crop. Not all rich child raised by that is raised by a single mother is a crop. But we know what the start is out there. It's a lot of them. When you this is one thing that people from two-parent household fail to understand. When you are from two-parent household and your dad maybe have an issue with your mom, in most cases, we that are raised from two-parents household know what goes on. Our mothers always drag us into the situation and make it about our father and win sympathy over our father. And when we as kids don't understand what is going on and we fall for that, guess what? We contribute to the destruction of our own family. Most of us know how our mothers have dragged us into something that doesn't concern us in our family. That's why I always tell people this. When your dad and your mom are having issue, stay away from it. It's not your damn business. Stay away from it. They're going to fight and they're going to come together. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to have your next sibling. It happens often. So that is why I say all the time, stay away from grown-up folks. If your dad is not sexually abusing you as a child, you cannot be putting something so heinous and say, oh, I don't want to talk about what other things that my dad did. Guess what? Whatever happens in your household that has to do with punishment because of your stubbornness, or that has to do with your mom and your dad, I think two-parent household is always far better than single-parent household. There is no comparison at all. I thank God every day. If there is one thing that I'm grateful of, is that every day I wake up, my dad was in the house. My mom was in the house. I am forever grateful of that. Because the kids that never had their parent, one of their parent in the house, will tell you that that's the worst thing that ever happened to them. And you don't ever want to be them at all. So if you had your dad and mom at home, be grateful. Be grateful and be grateful, because I tell you, a lot of people didn't have that opportunity.
I appreciate it, Kenny. I just want to push back. On some things. You know, I respect you, so I want to push back a little bit. So originally, the point that you made about men not necessarily not walking away from their kids, I can't agree. There are men out there that generally do walk away from their kids, and there's too many. There are men that walk away from their kids, and oftentimes it's got nothing to do with necessarily the woman per se. It's to do with their own emotional attachments. It's to do with their own history when it comes to their parents. It's to do with how they envisage the responsibility, not wanting to be tied down. And abandonment looks in many different forms. You can physically depart, and there are people who emotionally actually abandon their kids too. They're vacant. They're not there at all. Right. So there are different forms of abandonment that can happen in those situations. There's no way that I can agree and say that there aren't men out here who do that. Are there situations where the man will walk away from the kids because of the mom? Yes, I agree. That one I can definitely agree with you. But to say a statement like men don't be walking away from the situation unless it's the mother is doing it, is to put so much emphasis on the mother being the cause as to why you won't put the work in to see your kids, whether that means you going through the legal route. And again, this is going back to the almost similar conversation with Estella, which I was saying, it don't matter how hard it is legally to go into court and get your kids, right? This is why I said about the situation. It's not about how hard it is. It's about doing what's right, right? That woman, that is the woman that you're with and no longer with anymore, she can't stop you from seeing those kids, whether it means you have to go through the legal route and go and get it sorted. you got to do what you got to do. Men need to be more informed in how they can actually fight the fight and not just be like, well, it is over, it's done, right? And so for me, I can't agree with that aspect. But I definitely agree with the fact that two parents households, even if they weren't perfect, they are great to be in because you learn so many lessons from it. A lot of us do need to heal from them as well, but there is a lot of great lessons that one can learn from it as well. But to almost make it as if men aren't leaving households, and I'm not even trying to say it's a majority, I'm just saying to make it as if it's the woman's fault as to why they're leaving because her mouth is too big, it would be erroneous. It would be erroneous because it's not true. There are women who, yes, have big mouths. There are women who are sassy, women with attitude. But if that's what's stopping you from seeing your kids, you need to go and sort that out. Meaning, why did you choose in the first place? Number one. Number two, if you did choose and that's where you got to, you need to go through the legal route to go and get this sorted. There's no way I can put the
100% correct. What you just said right now is 100% correct, because just to add to what you said, yes, there are men out there that checked out for some reason. They checked out. Yeah, there are men out there that don't want to be part of the family because they just want to have their freedom. Those are very, very small number. But also, there are men out there that don't have the knowledge, that don't understand the legal means of fighting to have the custody of their children. And some of them don't even have the finances to do that. Because I have friends that fought for their children is because I have a guy right now. I have two guys. Even though the judge has awarded them custody, right? Equal custody, right? Or sometimes more custody than the woman is still fighting every day to change. Every year she will come again with another plan, another legal stuff, because at the end of the day, she gets community lawyer, whereas he has to pay for it. You see the difference? Because that's one of the things that we don't understand that happens in Muslim America. And in some cases, you, the man, will pay for her legal fee and your legal fee. So these are reasons why, in some cases, men will not even fight for it. They will just be like, you know what? Let her raise the child. I'll be back in 18 years. Because sometimes it's not a win-win situation. But if you fight for it as a man and you're ready for it, guess what? Most cases, men come out victorious. They win the case. But do you have the money? That's the question. If you don't have the money, you're just going to have to chill. Women, most of the women that engage in this, not all women, most of the women that engage in this, they understand, because guess what? Women advise each other legally, which men don't. We don't advise each other until it gets worse. That's when we come out and be like, oh, you should have done it like this. That's you should have. Not you should, but you should have. Well, then it's too late. Or then the guy has to now spend more money to make it work. So what you said, I agree with you. That's another perspective. That's true. I'm not going to disagree with you, because there are many perspectives to issues like this. At the end of the day, they have to understand that whatever decision that they take is detrimental to the family if it's a decision of otherwise. Whatever, this is my advice to women. Abandoning your family for how you feel is not a criteria for divorce. Abandon your family because the man is beating you up is a criteria for divorce. But if you wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, I don't feel loved anymore. No, it's not. Or I don't think I want to be here anymore. No, it's not. And if that's the case, you shouldn't be incentivized for that.
So again, I hear that. Slightly derailed, because that's not the conversation we're having about people who divorce and become a single mother. We're talking specifically about women who choose a sperm bank. In that regard, right?
I think I addressed that before. I said that that is
I'm just saying that. I feel like we're going on slightly of a tangent. That's all.
Sorry about that.
No, it's cool. No, I just want to make sure, because I don't want to derail, because I think, but one of the points that you made, which is why I would have to hold the line of what I was saying, is that very much what you're saying is what Estella was saying. Oh, it's hard to adopt. Do you know how difficult financially it is? I hear that. But that's not the conversation we're having. What are you supposed to do? We get there are nuances and there are mitigating situations as to why people might not be doing what they need to do. But the reality is we're not doing it, right? And the reality is that we're not having a discussion about those nuances. We're talking about if someone chooses that space, why have they if someone chooses to be a single mother, the detriment it happens to those kids. Similar enough, if a man abandons his kids, it's simple as whatever you want to tell me what it is. If you haven't documented you trying to see your kids, I don't want to hear nothing else because you've abandoned them. That's the reality of the situation. So we can add the nuances on another conversation, but this particular aspect, nah. I can't hold that line of because of how expensive it is, because it doesn't fit the conversation right now. And it's very similar to what Estella was kind of saying about trying to understand the nuances why someone chooses that. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. Now, what we can be doing in future, hopefully, is that as men, and maybe we can do a live about this as well, and we have done a live on this actually as well. We had it with Tyrone, Bruiser, myself, Sean, and we spoke about this, that men do need to have more of a conversation with other men on how to legally go about this issue. It's not a woman issue. It's not about women even leaving relationships. It's about how do you legally go about something to make sure that, number one, you know how to get the job done. If we're saying that women are advising each other legally, then we are the ones that are accountable, because we're not having a conversation between ourselves. Instead of us doing red pill and manosphere on the other side, talking about how bad women are, maybe they should have more conversations about how to go about it. Because there's too many conversations about how bad women are and women's nature, and a woman's going to take half and a woman's going to take the kids and run. And instead of actually saying, look, no matter how expensive it is, here are the procedures, how you have to go about it to make sure that you go after your kid. That's the common conversation we should be having, personally. But I appreciate some of your comments though about the two-parent household. I agree with those aspects. And I do agree that some people do leave relationships too early. Slightly detour from the conversation, but I do appreciate those points. Let me get Kathy in. Kathy, talk to me.
Hi, Kojo. Thank you for always having these good conversations. And I missed some of the earlier conversation. I was on and off, but I'm a single mother. I was on a call recently, and I know I talked about my father. So I came from a two-parent household, and I will agree it is far better to be in a two-parent household, but I don't agree to stay in that relationship or stay for the sake of the children, because at some point in my upbringing, there was a lot of arguments. My parents did get divorced, and it affected me. So when I became an adult and I am now a single mom, I made a choice to leave a relationship because it wasn't healthy. Now, I did not, Kenny, I know you mentioned about the incentives of, why women are, I don't know what that is, but personally, for me, I didn't take my father to child support. I took care of my child on my own. I try to give her the best life as possible. And I had to make a lot of sacrifices. I'm now 41 years old, and I always wished to have another child, but I said I would never, ever be a single mother again. Because although I was able to afford to give my daughter vacations every year, twice a year, I was able to put her into all the activities in the world. She's now 16, and she complains, oh, mommy never spent enough time with me. Oh, mommy never did this. Mom never did that. Even though in my eyes, I felt I did the best that I can, there is still something missing. And her father now is part of her life, because, I wasn't going to argue back and forth with her. I used to always tell him, I pray for you. Because one thing a court can't tell a man to do is how to be a father. They may give you money, but my biggest thing is being present, because I know the value of having a man and a child's life. And eventually, on his own timing, he's been around, and I think, and my daughter is in therapy. So that kind of helped bring that relationship together. But I never wanted to use my daughter as a tool, or, I know people who do it will, kind of keep the child away from the father. I always left the door open and always gave her a phone to call her dad and give her access to her father, just to give her the best that I can. But even that was not enough. And that was my reasoning for I would not ever do this again. I don't want to be a single mom. So I do feel like women want to have that experience of having a child. And I think you should go for whatever works for that individual. But I don't think no matter what you do, sometimes that child is curious to know about their father. They want to have the other parent in the household, especially when they go to school and they're going to school with children who have two parents, they start to ask questions. They start to feel different. They start to feel like something is missing in their life. And you can't fill that gap in. So personally, I think that it's better to have a two-parent household. On the other end, if the two parents don't work, I prefer to raise my child on their own, and hopefully the man comes around or we can work something out. That's just my opinion.
Thank you for that, Kathy, as well.
You're welcome.
Let me ask a question as well for you, Kathy, as well. So just so we can get a better perspective.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was it? I think there's an echo behind. I think you might have the YouTube open as well. But how difficult was it to hold the door open for the man?
It's the biggest challenge. It wasn't hard, right? Because he's not bad. I tell my friends this: don't date when you're depressed. I met him after I lost my dad. I wasn't in my right space. I picked up exactly what I was feeling. He's not a bad person. He's just not the person I would have attracted if I was in a better headset. Like if my mind was in a better place, and if I was healed, I would not have probably picked him. But I always believe in the higher power, and I believe that God has a purpose. Because when my dad died, I felt like being a nurse was my outlet, like worked every day, but it wasn't living. So being pregnant and learn I was pregnant, it's like God gave me another chance just gave me a gift. So, but he just wasn't that guy I would have picked up if I was in a better place in my life. But he's not a bad person, just not the man for me. And I think he liked me more than I liked him. And I think that was also a big challenge at times, because my daughter, as she got older, she would say, "Mommy, I think Daddy loves you more than he loved me." So that made me feel uncomfortable. And I think that sometimes was the biggest challenge, because I would have to be mean to him in order for him to kind of like, "Hey, just come here, look at a child and leave me alone." That was my issue. But as we got older, because he's much older, I'm much older, we are good. The door has always been open to him. I really believe, because I had that special bond with my dad, I know how important it is to have a man in a child's life, especially a healthy man. I mean, a man who is willing to be there. I wasn't going to force him. I wanted him to be there willingly. So, I mean, but I think I really wanted those times to just be supportive when I had to work. I think that was the biggest challenge. When I had to work, when I had to get things done, stop being spiteful, because sometimes I used to be spiteful. That was my biggest challenge.
Appreciate it, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy, for sharing that as well. And I think it's quite helpful to give us a better understanding. Camille, sorry, I cut you off earlier on. What were you going to say? I think I cut you off a little bit earlier on.
Yeah, I just have a question for you. I wanted to ask, are you pro-choice or pro-life, Kojo?
In terms of...
can we use that word? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Am I pro-life or pro-choice? This isn't a live for it, to be honest. But...
And I got a follow-up after that regarding this topic. So...
I've said my thoughts on this before. I've actually done a video on it, but I would vacate that question for today, just because I don't want to take the conversation away from you. But it's a good question.
It's relating with the topic very much so.
Okay.
If I'm not sure if you don't want to give your stance to everybody, I can ask in general then.
Okay.
If you don't want to disclose pro-choice or pro-life, well, I was going to say, especially for someone, let's say, who is pro-life, right? So if someone is pro-life, but then someone believes strongly that choosing to be a single mother is selfish, then should you not choose abortion in that scenario?
I hear what you're saying. So it's almost like an ethical... It's an ethical...
another ethical one, for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. No. I like it, because I have a few social social friends who do sociology, so I understand. Again, I mean, I would answer it, but I think I know me. I'm going to take it and I'm going to run the topic elsewhere. So I'm going to leave it, not because it's difficult, but because it will run the conversation elsewhere, and I know it will. But it's a good question. So I know you got me on Insta, innit? Send it to me on Insta so that we can do like a live or something on it, because I think there are some aspects of that conversation which will have a broader conversation around as well. But yeah, that's the only
so
reason
many
why.
topics, many questions.
But I
No,
like the question.
no worries.
I like the question. But yeah, listen. Yeah, go on. Yes.
No, that's sorry. Did you not want to touch on topic at all, or does Akena maybe want to answer Kathy, Nicole, or do you not want to touch?
I don't even open it to them because
Right,
it
no
will
worries.
derail the conversation. It will derail. It's a touchy subject. I know it will derail the conversation.
Yeah, but
Should I say
it's gonna
something
it's gonna go
regarding the
it's
topic
gonna go
though?
crazy if you go on that topic, because
Yeah, it will go
it's gonna
crazy.
be a while, because I know my stance. I know my stand is solid on it, but it's gonna go crazy.
It's gonna go crazy. Yeah. Nicole, what did you say? If it's about the topic, not the
Yeah.
question, then yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's definitely on topic. So I'm sharing this story because it's actually, I know of several stories like this. There was actually a story made into a movie about this, but it's about and this actually happened to a former, I would guess say, colleague of mine. They actually donated sperm while they were in college, and he became a doctor, got married. And there's actually a story about this too, that hit like the news, like I want to say about 9 years ago. But he donated sperm, got married, lived his life, had like I think it was 4 or 5 children. The children grew up adults. All of a sudden, one of the children that he provided sperm for came looking for him, and unfortunately, this created problems with his children that he had with his wife. That child wanted to be included. The child from the sperm donor wanted to be included in the will, wanted to be included in a lot of those things. While this may seem like it's off topic, but it is very much on topic, because this does happen a lot of times with children of sperm donors. A lot of times they want to know where they come from. And because they want to know where they come from, they do the research. They're trying to find, who is my dad? Who, do I look like him? Do they have children now? Do I have siblings? And a lot of people don't understand how that ends up affecting other people's families. So while it sounds great, and I know a lot of people say, oh, well, the sperm donors are anonymous. Not necessarily. You have so many different tools nowadays, DNA testing, 21, you and me, or whatever it is. They have all of these things. These connect people, and nobody wants to hear, your father was a sperm donor, and now you have other kids trying to contest wills, trying to get apart. We literally watched a colleague of ours be served by an attorney at work because, this older child now wants a piece of, what you've given to your current children. We had a colleague, I worked with one of the former colleagues' children, and he was served. His child was served. This man is dead and gone, and he's served, and he's totally confused. He's thinking to himself, why is this happening? But it is literally because he found out his sperm donor was a well-known surgeon and had made a very comfortable life. and now he wanted to be included in that. No, that doesn't happen for every single one of these situations. We know that. But a lot of times, I'm telling you, a lot of times these kids come back as adults looking for who is my family. And all I'm saying is, even though it seems like it's anonymous, it's really not. So that's just another aspect. And I'm going to tell you, that situation really broke their family. It really broke their family. And
Wow.
and I'm telling you, I know you guys think it's rare. It is not rare for children to come as adults and say, I want to know who my father is. It is not as rare as you think it is. Situations where they want to be included in the will, that's rare. But no, it is not rare at all. So and keep in
I know that I
mind,
was. Oh, sorry, go for it.
keep in
Sorry.
mind, no, they're not going back to. So I just want to keep this in mind. No, they're not going back to the sperm bank. They're not going back and getting records from that. They're doing those DNA testing sites. Those DNA testing sites connect you with other people. For those of you that don't know, depending on what you practice, you may have to have your DNA on file. Plus, if you give sperm, you
Blood.
have to have your DNA on file, blood, all those types of things, because now you're in the system for testing. So that's why I'm saying it's actually not as rare as you all think it is.
That's a scary sight. You know what I mean? I guess obviously, I would say, even if it's not a president and not like the main thing that happens now, I think a key thing what you were saying was making me think was, let's say, because obviously some donors are open, so you can find out who the donor is at 18, right? That's one aspect. But if the person said they don't want to be known, how does a child take that? Do you know what I mean? Like it's equivalent of the man running away from his family and running away from his family and not wanting to be found. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if someone tells you now that, yo, you are my child, but the sperm donor, gotta be honest with you, sperm donor didn't want to be contacted, didn't want to be known. You now have this let's say the sperm bank and the databases do an absolute amazing job and you can't find that father, right? You are now stuck in limbo, but you're forced in that situation. So similar to how like a father abandons and doesn't want to be found. You know what I mean? At least with the sperm donor, no, at least with the father who's abandoned, you may be able to say, well, his mother lives at so and so house. You can go speak to her if you want to speak to her. Or his brother, your uncle, lives here and here, so you can go speak to him if you want to. But if it's a sperm donor, because if they do their job appropriately and they stick to the laws and everything like that, and there's no file on anything like that, whatever, to be found, they can't trace them per se. That child is now stuck with nowhere else to go, meaning it's a dead end. So they are left with that question of, like you were saying, who am I, without it being a closed question. Because let's say the father dies and had no other family. Okay, that's the family dies, but at least you can go, well, you know what? This was his family lineage. Now you can't see his immediate family. Maybe some cousins or whatever. You can find some aspect of family. But if you don't have no access to no records, that question is now closed. And if they do their job appropriately, which for now, I think they're probably doing a good job for now. But I can see how this is going to open some doors in 10, 20 years time. All right. And maybe, when other law cases come to the field or whatever, this might not be the case. But that loop is now shut for that child forever. That's nuts. Like, that's pretty wild. You know what I mean? So you actually don't know where you come from. There's a part of you which you will not be able to put in place. That's what a kid's gonna have to deal with.
And let me just say this, because I see that there were questions about like how what laws are there that would give a child of a sperm donor, rights to his will? There aren't, but that does not stop them from trying. It does not stop them from trying to sue. And a lot of times people just get frustrated, they don't want to keep fighting. Most people don't like going to court, right? You don't like going to court. It's just, it is what it is. Now that's rare. It's not like they're always going to be fighting to be in the will. But what I'm really focusing on is not the aspect of money, right? I'm talking about the aspect of family. You have these sperm donor children that are coming back and they're saying, hey, your dad is my dad. And that having to be explained. And then that man having to explain to, maybe his wife already knows that he did this in college, right? But his children don't know. So now he has to explain this to his children. His children are confused about whether or not do we let these, people that we don't know be a part of our family. Where it should have all maintained should have stayed anonymous, right? So that's where I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, from a financial. We know that is rare. That situation was rare.
I can chip in a little block if you want me to.
If it's about the topic, yeah, go for it.
Yes. Okay, this is what it is. There is consequences for actions, right? And the thing about paternity is this: you can sign every paperwork that you want to sign, but once that DNA is tested and the child said, "You, my dad," every paperwork you signed is out of the window. It's no longer secret because you cannot. Everything is done for the interest of the child. So that is why I will tell people, don't go to the sperm bank and donate your sperm, because whatever thing you want to make anonymous, it's not going to be anonymous. It's anonymous between the two of you and the beneficiary or the acceptee. But you as a donor, once that child, the product comes out 18 years later and chooses otherwise, avoid any agreement that was made 19 years earlier. That's it. So you have to be careful about that. But then secondly, it's never okay to go to a sperm bank and take a sperm and have a child. It's not okay. I don't agree to that because number one, it's against nature. Science created that. I understand science created, but it's against nature because if nature wanted it, it would have been done. There is a reason why our ancestors, we say that a man should vet, that a man as a father should vet the what do they call it, the in-laws house, the in-laws history. Case in point, if you want to come marry my daughter, by culture I have to send out people to go and investigate your family, investigate if there is mental health issue in your family, if there is somebody that has stolen anything, like if there is a criminal in your family, if one of the mothers was a prostitute. You see what I'm saying? Those things are things that our forefathers or me as a father will vet for my daughter. Then I'm gonna have to vet the guy too, to find out if he's okay, if he's somebody with integrity. Men usually don't vet men for how much they make. It's recently that men started vetting men for how much they make because they threw the integrity out of the window. But in the old days, men vetted men for integrity. And if you pass that integrity and your family pass that integrity check, guess what happened? Now you can marry the daughter. It happened in my own family. That's how my mother got married to my dad, because my grandfather, which is my maternal grandfather, had to vet my paternal grandfather for that issue to make sure that we are going to be delivered in a family with integrity. So most sperm bank issue, people don't even vet for integrity. What they vet is to see how the man looks. If he's handsome, if he's tall, if he has blue eyes, and if he's a medical doctor or if he's a lawyer. You see what I'm saying? So I totally disagree with spam bank, people going to the spam bank to go get spam. I totally disagree with that because it's not, they don't go there for the reason. And then I also disagree that a woman should step into there to have to go and get a spam to impregnate herself to become a single mother, because that's like promoting that is promoting single motherhood, not like it is promoting single motherhood, to avail her of the responsibility to be under the control of a man and under the roof of a man, because she does not. I remember you and I discussed this. You disagreed on that. A man should be always in control of his wife as long as it's not physical abuse. I always stand behind that.
So I just
And
wanted
the word
to
controls a bit.
I
But go
just
for it,
wanted
Nicole.
to chime in on that. Actually, Akine, they do genetic testing. So we do a lot of genetic testing. We do backgrounds. Now, I don't work in the sperm bank, but I'm saying in my field, we 100% do background checks. We do genetic testing. We do DNA testing. Anytime you're giving bodily fluids, whether it's blood, sperm, or whatever, it is always tested.
So when they do testing, what test? You said that they do DNA testing. Do they do criminal history? Do they do criminal
Yes.
history and know if somebody has been a prostitute in that family before, or if they've been in any kind of criminal activity? Do they
I
do
mean,
that?
they do a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot
No,
of
but do they do
background.
those specific? Those two specific is the one that our answer, because our ancestors didn't really know much about the other, maybe whatever genetic stuff. Their main concentration was criminal history and integrity.
Well, you do have to have a criminal history, criminal background. They do that. However, if we can just be practical here, right? My father vetted my husband, but he's not gonna know if his second cousin was a prostitute. It's just not possible.
No.
So
Usually they'll do that for the parents and the siblings, not for second cousin, because you don't
I
really have that
I
much blood connection, that much connection with the second cousin. But for the father, mother, and then for the siblings of the suitor, those are the background checks that they do.
right. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but even nowadays, I mean, a lot of people can do a lot of things anonymous, right? I'm on here. You all don't see my face. So you can't tell if I'm pretty, if I'm tall, if I'm short, if I'm fat, if I'm skinny. You can't see those things.
But
So
that's why
it's
that's why the spam
Hold
bank
on,
is not
Kenneth,
a
hold on, let
good
it finish,
idea.
let it finish, and then you can go in. Go for it, Nicole.
so my point is just that, while those things may be important, and remember, I'm not for going to a sperm bank. I'm actually on the other side where I don't agree with it. For reasons that I gave earlier. However, I think when you start getting into, is someone a prostitute or is somebody, whatever. Now, maybe you may want to ask about alcoholism, right? That makes sense. You may want to ask about diabetes if it runs. Those things make sense. But to ask about, character wise, I think that's where you start saying, that's when you have the conversation when it relates to marriage or connecting the families. But now we're talking about specifically the sperm, right? We're talking about, is this healthy sperm? Is this, genetically what goes on? Do they have a background anywhere in the family history of, um, uh, I don't know, schizophrenia, something along those lines. I'm just saying, those other things we can't really determine, period, unless you're meeting their family and we're talking about a sperm bank versus marriage.
You want me to respond to that?
Yeah, you can just put it again if you want. It's the last few words, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Go
Yeah,
for it.
that's exactly why I said do not go to spam bank. If you cannot know if you can walk into a family to understand the genealogy outside the specimen test, you are doing it 100% wrong, because you still have. If you want to marry, this is the problem in today's age. Somebody that goes out there and get a spam bank and go to a spam bank and then have an insertion to have a baby, it's like the same person going to a club and pick up a woman and say, "Oh, that's my wife," or to a strip club and see a stripper shake it and then that's my wife, or to a party, a birthday party of your friend and then meet a woman and be like, "Oh, that's my wife." You see what I'm saying? Is equal
But
risk. I'm
how
coming.
the
It's
end
equal risk. The reason
Hold
why
on,
it's
hold on.
equal risk, the reason why it's equal risk is because you cannot ascertain who you're getting married to until you have intimate relationship with that family, meaning that you've gone to that family, you've ate with them, you've sat with them, you've had conversation with them, you've asked neighbors, who are they? And the neighbors have told you who these people are. That's the only way you can be able to marry into that family. If you can have communication with their family members and their neighbors, run.
Listen, I'm not even mad at what you're saying. I think you're making a good point in this aspect. Just you're talking about a set of characteristics and behaviors that person you'll never be able to know what that person is like, which is, I think someone else made it, I think MSCDPR, she made a point about this earlier on about some of the characteristics of someone. Like, for instance, even, how a son can behave like a father, even if the father's not there. So he behaves like the dad in certain characteristics because certain things are passed, quote unquote, through the genes, if one could say that, right? Even though he might not be present, right? Or he does things that remind the mother or the father that's not necessarily there, or vice versa with the mom. So what you're in a sense saying is, obviously, if you can't vet the quote unquote yes prophetess bloodline, you can't vet the characteristics of the family. And true and lo and behold, families do have characteristics. You'll find that certain families have strong characteristics and behaviors, beneficially, some negatively. You know what I mean? Depending. And so if you're not being aware of that, you don't know what you're looking into. So yeah, they may not have and someone said it earlier on, they may not be a criminal by law. You know what I mean? So you don't know what you're getting into. Do you know what I mean? So it is a good point, Kenny, and I never thought about it in that perspective, but that is a really good point. You can't vet that, and so you're walking into, and again, it's another way of avoiding the accountable process where someone can actually help you kind of do a better job at discerning who to go for. And actually the same thing in dating. And this is my last point, because we're going to wrap it up because we're past the 3-hour mark. But I think that's one of the most important parts when it comes to dating in 2023. And why I'm saying about, as much, we talk about the women and we have to talk about the women today, but I always include men in this because we are the leaders of our villages, leaders of our society. Father figures are so important because that aspect is exactly what you're talking about, right? Because now that father is able to say, that boy, there's something about him. Strong fathers who are present in their children's lives are oftentimes great at being able to spot certain things. Something that my dad said to me, he said, listen, the eyebrows came before the mustache. Just because you think you know better than me, just be aware, I've been here for a long time. And sometimes you think to yourself as a young kid, you know more, until you start to see life unraveling in ways that you have not seen it unravel. And so, yes, good father figures are important because they oftentimes are able to spot when someone's got really, I would say, even slight, deviant behavior, or they got someone that's like, have you considered this? Have you seen this? They can ask key questions, to their daughters and to their sons as well, for the wives as well, to kind of spot certain things. So I do agree with that point. All right. So listen, audience, we've had a really great conversation. I lied to myself again. I said I was going to be half an hour. It's a lie. I've been 3 hours after that. Okay, so I need to stop saying I'm going to be half an hour because it's not going to happen. All right, when the conversation flows, everybody gets involved. So I really, really appreciate everyone who's come up here. Camille, thank you so much. Kene, Nicole, Kathy came up. We had Estella. Jeffrey was here earlier on as well. And Shanji was also here as well. So really, really appreciate you guys joining in these conversations. I do need to plan the conversation for our solutions based upon the Ebony Williams situation. So we'll have that for you guys as well. But yeah, listen. Whew, this was a heavy one. We'll lighten it up next time, hopefully. But I hope you guys have enjoyed.
Derica told you that the next one has to be. Derica said that the next one has to be light.
She said she needs a little lighter next time, so she can do their laundry in peace. You know what I mean? And look, if anybody's out there, it's all love. If you do want to reach out to me, if there's something I've said that you may have felt maybe personally offended, reach out to me. You know what I mean? I'll have a conversation. I ain't gonna be for that at all. I think we're here to have real conversations. Sometimes that means stepping on toes, but I'm also a person that will have a conversation with you, irrespective as well. All right, as long as you come respectfully, because listen, don't come out throwing punches, because I ain't got the time for it. But if you want to have a real conversation, I'm here for it, and I'll definitely be open to discoursing as well. But audience, we will see you again soon. Much love and much appreciation. I do need to do a live on couples retreat, so I'm gonna go my way a little bit as well. But appreciate you. Still up to let me leave you with a great video. And Yala has done it again. You get me? We'll leave it that as well.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.